It's June 25th, 2019. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Right
hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing while we have invocation with Rabbi Avraham.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and people. I just want to point out why we're going to do this prayer. When the children of Israel were going to go into the land of Israel, they asked Moses, we want to send spies. And Moses asked God, is that okay? And God said, I'm not telling to you. I told you it's a good land, you should trust me. But if you want, do it. And the deeper meaning is, God tells us we need to use our minds. We need to try to figure out what the right thing to do is. And that's why God said, do it your way. And on that note, I'd like to just offer a prayer for all of us. As imperfect human beings, may we be able to put our own ego and our self-centeredness aside and allow our minds and our hearts to become conduits for God's will in all that we do here tonight. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. And the invocation was done by Rabbi Avraham Lipschitz. Okay. Can you do the pronunciation? So we can.
Rabbi Avraham Lipschitz. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Now, Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Yes, Mayor. Councilwoman Estime Irvin.
Present.
Councilman Desilme.
Here.
Councilman Galvin.
Here.
Vice Mayor Keys.
Here.
Mayor Bieneme.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager, do we have any addition, deletion, amendment, or deferral to the agenda?
Very quickly, we will not be having the recognition of the Employee of the Quarter presentations. I've spoken with our two representatives. They're running a little late, so they should be here at some point.
You're talking about our state rep and our state senate.
Actually, I believe the state rep is not coming at all. She's not coming at all.
Okay.
The senator is here. I saw him in the lobby.
So then he'll be here. And then the last change I need to make, the order tab J needs to be heard before tab I.
Tab J before tab I. Okay. You okay, Madam City Clerk?
Yes.
With the change. Madam City Attorney, is the agenda set?
The agenda is set. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. City events.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, North Miami neighbors, and guests. My name is Cassandra Timothy, Public Information Officer, and I'm here to share some of our city's upcoming programs, initiative, and events. Thinking about starting a business or expanding your current business? Join the City of North Miami staff as they discuss the ins and outs of doing business with the City of North Miami on Wednesday, June 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. The workshop will take place at Pinecrest Bakery located at 13488 Biscayne Boulevard in North Miami. North Miami residents are also invited to attend a hurricane preparedness session hosted by Councilwoman Mary Estime Irvin on Thursday, June 27th, beginning at 6 p.m. at the Griffin Community Center. The workshop will include lessons learned from Hurricane Irma, best practices, and training exercise on what to do before, during, and after a storm or incident. Get to know me and join us for Jazz at Mocha this Friday, June 28 at 8 p.m., rain or shine. The unique force of modern jazz, Leon Foster Thomas, will be performing in the Mocha Plaza. Join Chief Jariga and your friends at the North Miami Police Department on Saturday, June 29th from 8 to 11 a.m. at the pier at North Bayshore Park for a fun day of fishing. Youth up to age 17 will learn water safety tips, saltwater fishing methods, and responsible marine practices. Looking for exciting activities for your children this summer? Well, the City of North Miami has lots of options. Summer camp is currently underway at the North Miami Parks and Recreation Department. This includes an assortment of indoors and outdoors activities. The Museum of Contemporary Art also offers 2 summer camp programs. Each session offers a different theme, introducing students to a variety of contemporary art and design techniques. Also, your children are invited to participate in the North Miami Public Library 2019 Summer Reading Program, themed A Universe of Stories. The program is designed to prevent summer learning loss by creating opportunities for you to read at leisure and participate in hands-on activity and educational activities. Stop by on Tuesday, July 2nd for story time. Celebrate Sister Cities International with Mayor Philippe Bien-Aimé and Councilman Alex DeSome and their commitment to creating global relationships centered on cultural, educational, information, and trade exchanges. The reception, sponsored by Johnson & Wales University, will take place at 6 p.m. Tuesday, July 2nd in the Wildcat Ballroom. Be sure to get to know me on Thursday, July 4th for the 2019 Independence Day celebration by the Bay. Enjoy fireworks at sundown, a kids' corner, live musical entertainment, and great food. Admission and parking are free. Don't forget to bring your blankets and lawn chair. This event will take place rain or shine. North Miami residents are also invited to observe a workshop discussion between the mayor, council, and city staff about the development and priorities of the City of North Miami's fiscal year 2019-2020 preliminary budget on Wednesday, July 10th, beginning at 6 p.m. right here in the council chamber. Also, July is Parks and Recreation Month. This year's theme, Game On, will have you racing to our parks and recreation centers for a bike rodeo scheduled for Saturday, July 13, fishing contests, games, and more. Stay tuned for details. Stay up to date with the latest happenings in the City of North Miami by visiting northmiamifl.gov and click on the Connect with Nomi icon, where you can sign up to receive our monthly newsletter and also like the City of North Miami on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any city project updates?
Not tonight, sir.
Before we proceed, let me recognize our First Lady, my wife, Sarah. Thank you for coming. This is your first. Let me recognize our former mayor, Kevin Burns. And now let me bring on the podium our great Senator, Jason Pizzo, for an update on the 2019 legislative session.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to say congratulations to you, Mayor, Madam Clerk, and Councilwoman Irvin. Congratulations. The city's in good hands. Can everyone hear me? I may do a little bit of a left turn here as well. I serve you. This session was, as I'm sure many of you know, and a few of you obviously came up to visit, some good, some very bad, and some less bad made possible by a number of us that were able to engage in some of the bill drafting. When we knew that certain bills were going to pass, some of them very bad, we sought to engage and fight to make sure that there were some portions or parts of them that would be applicable and install safety nets. For instance, one of the most egregious bills that passed was the Sanctuary Cities ban. And on the House side, I believe there were 60 amendments that were filed. On our Senate side, I believe there was upwards of 50 or 55. I'm proud to tell you that only one amendment from the Democratic Party that was accepted was my own. It protects victims and witnesses that are undocumented and without papers to have protection if they are the victim or witness of any serious number of felonies, whether it's human trafficking, sexual assault, domestic violence, and so on and so forth. So although the bill is terrible and it codifies and is effectively a proxy for a 2020 national campaign on a system that we already employ as it relates to undocumented aliens and citizens, I'm proud to say that you should be able to tell people in the community, especially those that are not from here, that they are protected if they are victims and witnesses in crimes. Another one that I was able to file and pass is a DNA bill, which allows us to go after the most serious of sexual rapists and murderers and be able to get a warrant for arrest directly when there is a DNA match. A number of my other bills were passed by the language being taken. If you don't have pride of authorship, you can be very successful. So a number of my bills were taken and incorporated into other bills, which I'm happy to go over with you. But more specific and more applicable to North Miami, as you know, there's a frenzy at the very end when it comes to the conferencing that takes place for appropriations. We had a couple in the hopper and then pushed towards the end that we were able to get partial funding for the Arch Creek. So I'm pleased to say that. I know Senator Oscar Branyan, for a local senior charity, was also able to secure some funding. The governor took the veto pen last week, and thankfully North Miami survived. A number of our other cities, I served proudly 15 cities, and the pen was struck on places like Miami Shores, which hasn't gotten money in 15 years. So it was rather disheartening to see. As a freshman Democratic senator, I listened twice as much as I spoke because I have 2 ears and one mouth. But I will tell you that coming into this session, we're going to be a little bit different, not less, stern or aggressive, but certainly acting a little different. Our district went some time without having close watch on the legislation that would come back and affect us here locally. It's a great distance to drive, but it was even a greater distance where things just seemed to fall by the wayside. A couple of things that I said that are locally applicable. Just this past couple of weeks, I know that we've had an issue that's not unique to the coastline, but the invasion of sargassum seaweed is a real problem. So one of the perks of this job is that when you make a phone call to somebody, they have to pick up the phone. So I want to commend Vice Mayor Carol Keyes, who I know was right out there immediately over in Keystone, and quietly behind the scenes what we did, and I know the Vice Mayor was aware of what we were doing the whole time, but we need to collectively put residents at ease and make sure that the environments are safe for our community, especially for our children. So we engaged the Department of Health and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection just to make sure that what was going on in the city and the county was all resulting in the same readings. I will say, thankfully, that the governor did sign two bills, Senate Bill 1552 and 325, which have to do with Florida red tide mitigation as well as coastal management. We would like to see the sargassum seaweed, because it's pelagic, it doesn't originate from the ground. We'd like to see it also incorporated in that study at the Moat Laboratory. A couple things. I do also have to give a very sincere shout out to your chief, who obviously following the horrific tragedy of losing 3 young men, was immediately communicated with me. We went to go see the families the very next morning, and it was very somber. As many of you know, I was a former prosecutor and handled a lot of homicides, and I will tell you this was almost worse than most of the cases that we dealt with, because it was so senseless. But I have to commend the chief, especially for bringing us along and being able to make contact with the families, and we were proud to provide the T-shirts that many of the kids wore at the memorial, which had the faces of the young men on there, 13, 15, and 17. It's horrific, especially as a father of twins, soon to be 13. On the commercial side, the business rent tax is going to be lowering 20 basis points. That should be good news for a number of people. Of particular note, the governor has exercised one veto, and this is very, very important. While you might, on its face, not have great interest in plastic straw bans as an ordinance, it's what it bodes and what it suggests that's far more important. And that is that the summary that went along with his veto basically said that local cities should be able to control their own destinies, and if the voters don't like it, they can vote council and commission out. But this is something, ordinances like these that are meant to protect locally or make a stand locally should be honored if that's what the town mothers and fathers so choose. So it's not just about plastic straw bans, it's about a number of things. It could be about short-term rentals or any manner of things that you choose to pass by ordinance. One of the other less bad ordinances less bad legislation that we were able to draft something and push for was on growth management as it relates to inclusionary zoning. The House version did not allow you, the city of North Miami, to be able to require that affordable housing components be included in development plans. So we pushed for the Senate version, which does allow the city of North Miami and other municipalities to insist that there are affordable housing components inside of any new development. That's a very, very big deal. Now, that will be a sore spot and some tough love measures for a number of cities throughout Florida, but it's absolutely necessary because, as we all know, the cost of housing far outpaces the wage earnings that we have here. Finally, I would just like to say that the biggest concern to me outside of the lives of people, just based on my prior profession, is the critical infrastructure issues that we have here in Miami-Dade County. And I cannot be less candid enough than to suggest to you we have tremendous headwinds when it comes to the separation between the cities, the county, and the state. We met with great resistance when we tried to secure any type of funding especially for sanitary sewer systems or those properties looking to convert from septic over to sanitary sewer. We need a very, very expensive redo. We need to rip up, repair, and replace very aged, sometimes 55-year-old pipes. I think some of us were made aware just by pictures of some local residents, even to the the local area, of where everything goes when we flush our toilets, or what backs up. Now, the cost for the 92,000 septic sewer to sanitary sewer system conversions totals about $3.3 billion countywide, which gives you sticker shock until you consider the fact that the assessed values of those same properties are nearly $300 billion. So if we want to effectively, we're basically saying we've reached past the tipping point. If we want to save our homes and our businesses and our communities, this tough love measure can no longer be a can that's kicked down the road by the county commission. There was a consent decree from the federal government since 2013 to get on it, and we haven't. So pump stations fail, sewage backs up, and I don't have to explain it to a number of residents here because they understand it. A couple other things that are of note. I'm sorry to be so loquacious, but there was a number of things especially applicable. Texting while driving is soon to be illegal. So, you guys got to put down your phones. When you're at a stoplight or a stop sign, you may momentarily take it in your hand. Other than that, put it down. Between October and January, warnings will be issued. Beginning January 1st, 2020, citations will be issued. The one thing that was of particular concern, obviously, was that a number of cases or instances involved racial profiling with police departments. So the race and ethnicity of the individual who's being stopped has to also be documented along with the citation, so we can keep a track of that. And then finally, prior to my being sworn in and proudly serving as your state senator, FIU was able to squeeze in language in legislation to allow for a roadway over at FIU. Tomorrow afternoon, you'll be all receiving a copy by way of Madam Clerk of a letter I'm sending to the Florida Department of Transportation, because I would like us to go fast forward here and get to the point where a traffic engineering firm, without input from anyone, as a disinterested third party, whether even it is the state, to see where the roadway should go or where other options may be available. I know that this is a point that we all thought that efforts were being made to protect the community, especially that section of North Miami, but we really need to base this on engineering and science with any available options that there may be, so that copy will be forthcoming. And I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any question on the dash?
First of all, thank you for all of your help with our seaweed the last few weeks. You were fabulous and made our residents feel really comfortable, especially with the third test. And also thank you for your compassion with the 3 youths that were mowed over by a driver a few weeks ago. You came out with us and really appreciate it, and so thank you for your compassion with our city. My one question, you mentioned a $3.2 billion countywide sewer overhaul. Will that include the municipalities or the?
No, that's, Madam Vice Mayor, that is just the price tag as it relates to septic to sewer conversion. That doesn't even get to the aged actual sanitary mains that run underneath a number of roadways, obviously, and the pump stations that serve those.
Has anybody looked at that? And
yes, we met, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
We met with Doug Yoder on Friday afternoon from Water and Sewer Department to basically start drawing out a map. It's going to seem almost apocalyptic, both in cost and how dire the situation is, but it's absolutely necessary. I mean, we simply just can't continue to ignore it. We can't allow high-rises to go up that sell with $30 million penthouses and allow them to keep flushing their toilets into broken clay pipes that then allow raw sewage to go out into the ocean. Just can't do it anymore. So expect forthcoming to be a very expensive, tough love measure report to be forthcoming.
So can you keep it? can it be done so that the municipalities are included with the project and have the option to join in? So, like if Dade County is going to be doing a new sewer system, the city of North Miami would have the option to go with them, cut the cost maybe, and see how we can do that.
Absolutely.
It's something we want to do.
We're doing that in contemplating the report as it relates to SOAR. We're also doing that with co-locating any conduit. I was one of the few people that voted against the Senate Bill 1000 that allowed communications companies to just rip into your swale wherever they want and locate 5G and all of those things. But the short answer is yes. We're doing the same thing with FPL. We're doing the same thing with communications companies, and we'll do the same thing with infrastructure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Senator Pizzo, thank you for being here tonight, making this presentation. Your statement just a moment ago that there was movement on the FIU 135th Street road access issue is absolutely brand new to me.
Not that there was movement, but that effectively I've been hearing from a number of obviously different voices, different concerns, and quite frankly, different interests. FIU obviously wants to put the road, the path of least resistance. Obviously, that's of genuine concern to the local residents. I know Commissioner Hayman, who I love dearly, has another idea of where the road should go. Representative Joe Geller is amenable to anything that makes sense and makes everybody happy. So all I'm proposing is, when I first learned about this, I assumed that traffic engineering studies had been done, soil samples phase 1s and 2s looking for contamination, all manner of things that had already been completed, and they hadn't. So my charge to FIU was, you actually you can't sit down and have meetings and have discussions about things without, I love science and I love math, because math has one right answer. So instead of having all these discussions about where a road should go, because none of us are road builders, why don't we all ask a disinterested third party to go ahead and say, listen, based on the trip generation that we have, my family's laid a lot of road. Based on the trip generation that we have, based on the students of the different schools and the development that we have, number one, is a secondary road of ingress and egress necessary? And two, if it is, where should it go? If you could provide option A and option B or option C, please do so. And if it comes down to a situation where the path of least resistance for the cost for FIU is X, and maybe it's X plus something de minimis as it relates to the quality of life, then let's go with option B. But until we actually have a study that's done that shows where proper radiuses can be, where proper trip generation can occur, it's kind of dangerous and gets a little emotional because it's not based on anything without having a traffic study done, which I really had assumed was already done, and it wasn't.
There was no new legislation sponsored by FIU that was adopted by the legislation.
This session?
This session.
As to this issue?
Correct.
No.
Okay.
No.
So, because you speaking those words into the microphone is going to make my phone buzz probably in another 20 minutes that people are thinking, oh my God, FIU has just, quote unquote, opened up the road. FIU didn't sponsor anything new. No. There's technically not anything new.
I made it very clear, put it this way, shy I am not. So upon first meeting President Rosenberg, I made it very clear that this is an issue of concern. Again, when the whole troop was there at FIU to meet me for a campus tour, I had assumed I was going to see some road plans, and we had it. Last session, prior to me taking office, at the very last minute, an amendment was placed in that went along with like electrical bike legislation or so forth, that basically just gave a blanket sort of point of ingress and egress to universities, but squarely it meant this one.
But nothing new happened in this legislative session that I should be worried about or concerned.
And my edict and my directive to FIU, and especially to their lobbyists who would be around us in Tallahassee day in and day out, is study, 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 study.
Appreciate that. Sure. Thank you, Senator.
Absolutely.
And Councilmember? No questions? As far as the Sanctuary City, what will be the consequence if we violate that that bill?
Okay, so Mayor, the answer is the system and the program is already in place. So let me tell you what that means, because I lived it. So if somebody is arrested, within 48 hours a bulletin goes out that this person that does not have citizenship or that there's an undocumented alien, whatever, that's an arrest. If ICE chooses to hold and detain that individual, which we often were doing at our own expense and still do. At about $150 a day, the county corrections department will house people that may have an immigration hold, and we foot the bill for that. We're never reimbursed by the federal government. And if ICE decides to come and take the person that's being detained, they do so. None of that system or program is changing. So and I'm happy to send you a link where I simply ask on the Senate floor towards the end of session to the sponsor, to Senator Gruters. I said, Senator Gruters, I live in Miami-Dade County. We have a large mixed population of everyone from everywhere. Is my district violating the sanctuary city bill right now, the language or the spirit of it? He said, no, that's the great thing. It's perspective. I go, I just want to ask you again, sir, is my district in violation in any fashion? Is anyone's district in violation of immigration program and process right now? He had to answer no. So it's a proxy, Mayor. It's simply optics for a 2020 election, and I named it as so on the Senate floor. I said, this is not an organic bill. This was not addressing a concern. Another senator, Senator Simmons, called it a crisis. Our immigration's a crisis. To which I said that the crisis that cuts your lawn and builds your home and cooks your food is the crisis, sir. They also tried to say that undocumented aliens are far more violent and commit more crimes. Well, the actual numbers was 4,600 in the state prison system on a population of 800,000 of undocumented, while 263,000 Floridians are either in probation or serving prison, so they're 2.5 times more likely than undocumented aliens. But the long answer to your question is a program is supposed to be in place. Cities and counties are allowed to contract with the federal government. I expect we'll see reimbursement about as fast as we get FEMA reimbursement.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question. In a statement, the governor planned to add about $400 million toward affordable housing in the budget. Did that pass? Or?
So every year, a portion of the documentary stamps that you pay on the transfer of real estate, whether it's a home or business, goes into a fund called the Sadowski Fund. Overwhelmingly, in 1992, the Floridians passed overwhelmingly, almost by 2/3, the ability for the state to collect a portion of those doc stamps, put it in a fund called the Sadowski Fund, and then that's to be used for affordable housing, whether it's for the purchase of land, tax credits for construction, and even paying impact fees and what have you. Every year during Rick Scott's tenure, that fund was swept to the tune of now, I think, $1.3 or $1.4 billion. The Senate filed a bill, SB 70, and that was to maintain and preserve and protect the Sadowski Fund, that it not be raided. The bittersweet benefit of Hurricane Michael to the Panhandle is that $200 million of that fund was used for housing rebuilding, especially affordable housing in the Panhandle. I very wish and hope that we continue to keep at least $200 million, but another bill will be filed again this session that we not touch any of it. But the governor did allow, and the budget did call for taking, I believe it was $100 million out of the Sadowski. We're talking about a fund that collects almost $300 million a year, which my district alone could use 20 million of that. We would have been able to use 20 million of that. We can take a housing inventory of another 100,000 affordable housing units in Miami-Dade County and use it up wisely. So the answer is no, the governor did not create, allow, allocate, or plan for any additional funding to be going to affordable housing, and in fact allowed both houses of the legislature to take from the fund and use it for other purposes, unfortunately.
No other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
And now coming up next, the call for presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Miguel Augustin, Finance Director. I'm going to introduce the auditors, RSM McGladrey. They'll be presenting the 2018 CAFR results. And afterwards, I will give some context on some of the operational results of the general fund. But they'll be doing their presentation as first.
Thank you. Good night, Mayor, Council members, Mr. Manager. My name is Anil Harris. I'm with RSM US LLP, the independent auditors for the City of North Miami. And also with me is Sardu Matilis, who serves as the engagement manager on the audit for the fiscal year ended. In front of you, you should have a booklet that has our required communications that we as auditors and the professional standards requires us to communicate to you in your role as governance as relates to the conduct of the audit and the financial and the results. First, the audit was conducted in accordance with government auditing standards. Those are the standards mandated by our profession, and the audit was conducted within those standards, and we issued an unmodified opinion, which basically is the highest level of assurance any auditor can provide to a client during the course of the audit. For the year ended, the city adopted one new accounting standard, which required the restatement of the financial statements. What's important to point out as it relates to that is that the restatement is required by the accounting standard. It doesn't reflect any errors or items of concern related to the adoption of the standard. If you look at any other governmental entity, they would have a similar restatement in their financial statements for the year ended. There were no significant issues or unusual transactions that came out of the audit that we need to bring to your attention. Had there been any, we would have been reporting that to you at this point. In connection with the audit, there are a number of significant estimates that management makes in preparing the financial statements. These are included on pages 3 and 4 of the booklet. These estimates include the estimate for self-insurance liability, the estimate for the city's net pension liability related to its pension plan, the estimate for its other post-employment benefits. Each of those liabilities are estimated by an actuary who's independent of the city. We as auditors audit the results of those estimates, and we also have our independent actuaries review the estimates to determine whether or not they're in accordance with the standards of the profession. We've concluded that all the estimates as included in the financial statements are proper and reasonable in our estimation. Going on to page 2, there are a number of audit adjustments that were posted subsequent to the time we started the audit. Those adjustments are included with the representation letters included in the attachment to this booklet. There was one uncorrected misstatement related to the timing of the recognition of revenues. That's also included within the back of this booklet. To point out that uncorrected item is not material in nature, therefore we didn't consider it a need to record it, or management didn't determine that it did not have to be recorded. There were no disagreements with management through the course of the audit. In connection with the audit, there was one item of significance that we did discuss. That relates to the general fund deficit as of the year ended. For the year ended, the city recorded a general fund deficit of $8.1 million, which is a cumulative effect over time of where revenues or expenditures have exceeded revenues on a cumulative basis. To eliminate the deficit, we discussed with management and have enacted a plan to budget a surplus of revenues going forward to ensure that that deficit is eliminated over a period of 3 to 5 years. We had no significant difficulties in performing the audit. All records were provided to us. The audit is a 3-month process, 3 to 4 month process. All records requested were provided. We had no issues during the course of the audit. I also want to bring to your attention that we also issue 2 other reports as relates to the audit. One is the management letter as required by the State Auditor General's Office, and also a single audit report related to our audit of the city's expenditure of grants, both state and federal grants. As it relates to the single audit, which is the audit of the federal grants, the city expended $1.7 million of federal dollars in the current year and $182,000 of state grants. Within that report, it's an unmodified opinion. However, we noted there were some findings or issues of non-compliance related to award 17277, which is a workforce innovation grant. Those findings related to reporting to the grantor, eligibility of certain participants, and the completion of timesheets as it relates to the participants in the program. To note, the grantor also monitored that grant during the year. The city responded as to how they addressed those items that we noted and that the grantor noted, and the grantor accepted the city's response as it relates to the corrective actions taken. So at this point, we do not consider those to be an ongoing issue. Also within that letter, we have an item related to the budget practices and policies of the city. Basically, we have recommended that the city enact more stringent controls as it relates to monitoring the budget, as well as previously mentioned, enact a plan to eliminate the deficit over a period of time. As previously mentioned, that plan would have to require that the city budget, in excess of revenues over the expenditures in the subsequent years, 9/30/19 and onward. We've also issued a management letter, which is also included in your package. Again, it has a recommendation recommending that the city, once again, enact a plan to cure the deficit. We also had 3 other recommendations as it relates to financial reporting and certain items as it relates to the IT administration of access rights to the city's systems. And the final item I would want to just touch on before the finance director goes over the detailed results of the financial statement is just a high-level overview of the highlights of the CAFR, which is the financial statements of the city for the year ended. Beginning on page 1 is our opinion, as I previously mentioned, which is an unmodified opinion, the highest level of assurance we can provide as auditors. On page 31, it shows the results of the general fund's operations. For the year ended, the general fund showed a decrease in fund balance of $3.3 million, basically meaning that the expenditures have exceeded the revenues. On a cumulative basis, as I previously mentioned, that resulted
Excuse me, we don't have page 31. Which book are you?
He's referring to the actual.
the financial statements. Yep. On a cumulative basis, as previously mentioned, that has the effect of the revenues, the expenditures exceeding the revenues over multiple years have resulted in a net deficit in the fund balance of $8.2 million for the year ended. And with that, I'll take any questions you have.
First?
I can do that.
Okay, go ahead.
So essentially, I'm going to focus on the $8.1 million deficit that accumulated over the past couple of years, and that is presented in the 2018 CAFR. All right, so the analysis that you see is essentially the revenues and expenditures from fiscal year 2016 through 2018, where the revenues and expenditures are presented, and you can see at a very high level how the deficit accumulated year over year. So for 2016, the ending fund balance for the general fund was a negative $347,000. And as a result of operations from 2017, of a operating deficit of 4.4 million, it went up to 4.8 million. And then for 2018, a deficit of operations of 3.3 million, then reached a deficit to the 8.1 that we present in the 2018 CAFR. So just to give you some context, in 2015, the 2015 CAFR, there was a general fund balance of 13.79 million. At that point, there was an amount that was recorded in the CAFR, the 2015 CAFR, that should not have been presented in revenue at that point. So that number was rolled into the fund balance at that point. When we engaged new auditors and new staff came in, new city manager, the accounting error was noted, and
in what
therefore,
year?
This was in 2016 is when it was noted.
When it was reported? You're talking about the $13 million for the groundwater remediation grant?
No, this is for the prepayment that was made by Solemia.
Okay.
Yep, back in 2014, I believe it was. So in 2016 is when the adjustment was made to the fund balance to the tune of 14.7 million, and that was to properly state the beginning fund balance for fiscal year 2016. And what was a balance of 13.7 million at that point was restated to a beginning negative fund balance of 957,000. Now in 2016's fiscal year, there was a 600,000 odd operating, I want to say profit, but excess of revenues over expenditures, which then ended with a fund balance of negative 347. So that's where we get to the 347 that was in the previous slide for 2016's ending fund balance. Now in fiscal year 2017, there was an operating deficit in the general fund of 4.4 million. The primary reasons for that result were there was an increase in the salaries for public safety of 2.2 million in the general fund. We're all talking about the general fund, as well as an increased capital outlay, meaning funds spent for streets and sidewalks, library improvements. There were also computer equipment that was purchased, as well as equipment for the police officers and automobiles. There was also a $515,000 increase in the Culture and Recreation Department for operations in that function.
No, I'm saying what cultural and recreation?
Those are.
It's just a expenditure category. It's not a department.
Oh.
Is that special events?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So anybody and everybody who wants to know how much we spent on special events in the last year,
Well, that's
515,000.
No.
that's just the increase. Increase.
Okay.
over the
But,
previous
okay.
year.
I'll save my questions.
Right. So, okay. For fiscal year 2018, I'll do the same thing. There was a 3.3 operating deficit in the general fund, and that was due to a $3.8 million increase in salaries of the remaining staff. The police got their increase in the year before, so other employees got their increase in fiscal year 18. Also, there was a projected sale of some property that was expected to go through but did not. It was to the tune of $3 million. So that was something that affected the overall revenues for fiscal year 18. And that contributed to the operating deficit in the general fund as well. Also, last but not least, the city was able to now recognize the expenditures related to Hurricane Irma to the tune of, well, we're talking as of 9/30/2018, to the tune of 5.3 million. 3.6 of that was reclassed to another fund, which we call the FEMA Disaster Recovery Fund. And the expenditures are recorded there, but we don't have the revenues recorded because we can't record it until we have a better hold on when we're going to get a reimbursement from FEMA. So of the 5.3 million of FEMA expenses, 1.7 million of that remained in the general fund because not everything that we expend for disaster recovery is reimbursable by FEMA.
How much it is we won't be able to recover from
Well,
FEMA?
as of 9/30, I don't know how much it is now. I didn't check the numbers, but it was 1.7 million in the general fund.
That's when we spent 1.7 million and we won't be able to recover that money under the FEMA disaster plan.
All of it was submitted.
Right.
I understand. Yeah. But
But the expectation is we won't get 100% recovery for everything.
okay.
So
You wasn't expect.
So we will always submit everything.
Mhm.
On average, FEMA only gives you back 75% of
Okay.
your total expenditure.
Okay. That's when we spent 1.7 million that we won't be able
We
to
may not
recover.
get 100% back.
Okay.
But we have
Right.
submitted it all for reimbursement.
Okay.
Okay, so this next slide, I don't know how visible it is, but it's essentially presenting the cash and investment balances as of certain points in time. The balance as of May 2019 was an overall cash and investments balance of 53 million 975. That balance as of 9/30/2018, the point at which the CAFR is being measured, was 63,448,000. Now, a lot of that decrease from that point to now relates to the pension payment that we made of roughly 7 million to the police and the Claire T. Singerman plans, as well as the 7 million that we transferred over to the escrow account for the Cagney Park. That was the 7 million that we transferred in April, I believe that was. So that's just to give you context of, like, I mean, our cash balances go up and down depending on how the revenues come in, but those are at those points in time, those what the balances were. And I also included, as of the last quarter as well, which was March 30th, the overall balance was 56 million. So there was not a lot of movement between March and May. So that concludes my presentation.
You're set? Now, public hearing is open on. Only you gonna be able to answer questions, not from. Okay, now let's turn it to the dais before we open public hearing for the finance director to answer questions, not the auditor, right? Yes, Carol.
I hadn't seen this bank account and balances, so it looks like it's down 16.
Where are you?
from
What
last
page
year.
are you
I'm on
counting?
that list of bank accounts and balances.
Okay.
So we're down 16,473. You've got the 7 million as an asset in Wells Fargo, and I see the other one went down. So that really didn't change the balance. It just went from one account to the other, correct?
That is correct.
So I've been looking at this chart. I'm trying to see how we have a negative 16 million in our bank accounts.
Well, it's not a negative 16 million. It's a decrease from.
Decrease.
Yeah, decrease from 930.
All he's demonstrating is
to
where our
current.
ending balance was as of the end of the audit period and where we are today. Like we've explained at the other meetings. All
Use
of that
the
stuff is
mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. All of that stuff, it has timing differences. So as we go through the remainder
Is
of
it still the timing?
fiscal year, our cash balances will go back up. Or that's what we've seen.
Right, because revenues come in at different times throughout the year. They don't just all come at once.
Okay, I'd like to hear public hearing first, and
I got 1,000 questions before we even get to public hearing.
But for the auditor, you only you can
I mean, I've
ask
spent.
question to them. Then the finance director gonna stay for public hearing.
Okay, I've spent
Hi.
4 hours with our auditor. I'm not going to repeat all the questions.
That's when you're comfortable with him. Okay.
I'm comfortable.
any
I mean, I
question for the
understand. I don't
auditor?
know. I'm not saying that I'm happy and comfortable with where we are, but I understand it. I don't know if I should be asking questions on behalf of people. Nobody's given me any questions. One question I did ask you that I'm going to repeat was, I asked you a month ago when we first met, was anything that, did you find any malfeasance or misfeasance in anything that our staff did in their accounting practices?
No, so normally the audit ends in April, but we extended the audit and the procedures we performed over the records for an additional month to do additional test work, and we found no evidence or anything to support there was any wrongdoings by management, that resulted in the results that we see here. It's just a matter of, as Mr. Gustin mentioned, cumulative effect of the revenues being less than expenditures over time, not that management has done anything, improperly.
In our operating deficit in 2017, we have reasons like public safety 26 million, increased capital 476, cultural and recreation. Were any of these amounts were any of these amounts included in the budget? Or we just all of a sudden had a 2.5 million increase in salaries? That wasn't part of the budget?
Well, they were included in the budget.
To that extent?
So, when you look at the financial statements, you have to separate a budget to actual variance versus the change in your year-to-year actual results. What he's showing you is the change in the year-to-year actual results. You're asking a question, you know, more of a, what was the variance between the budget, appropriated budget, and our operations? In the actual CAFR, there's a schedule on page, is it 22?
I believe 22 or 21.
That actually shows the budget, the appropriated budget versus the actual expenditures. And when you look at that, you'll see the budgeted revenues, we performed about $3 million less than we expected to perform. And on the expenditure side, we actually performed better than budget. I think it was it 11 million? I don't have to. I'm looking at pure operating expenditures.
Yeah, 11 million.
11, and we performed better than budget on the expenditure side by 11 million.
Okay, so in this CAFR in 2018, the COLA merit of the 3.8 million, that was already in the budget, correct?
That's right.
It was a budget. So we knew we had enough money for that. And the revenue of the 3 million from the sale of the 20 acres, that didn't happen.
That's correct.
And by showing that as income, we spent it because we thought it was coming, and that's basically your negative 3 million in general fund.
Right. That comparing the revenues that actually came in versus the expenditures that actually happened. Yes.
And IRMA is just brought into two different category, totaling the 5 million, which we still need to recoup, and that brought two of the funds down.
Right. Exactly. Because portion was in the general fund and the portion is in another fund.
Okay.
The disaster recovery
Thank you
fund.
for your charts. I'm done.
But that's not one of the causes of the deficit. The FEMA, the 1.7 only. Okay.
That's
a portion.
correct.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And Scott?
To either party, how much does, as of the end of the fiscal year that's subject to this CAFR, how much money does the city of North Miami have in its bank account? If we wanted to write one big ass check, excuse my French, one big check and bankrupt the city at one time, how much is in the city's bank balance?
As of 9/30, 2000.
It's on the graph.
I can't even see the chart.
So, I think we had given you a printout.
Go ahead. Tell
But I did. Just
But
tell
it was
me.
like
Tell me.
At
How much?
that point, it was in the daily investment account. It was 42 million.
Okay.
But in terms of like all our cash and investments, 63 million.
So we've got 42 million cash in the bank, plus another 21 million in assets.
Correct.
Are we missing any payroll payments to any staff members at this time?
No, we are not.
Are we missing any pension payments to former employees at this time?
We're not.
Do we have vendors who are not being repaid for services because we lack the assets to pay them?
No, that's not the case.
Amir, if you had seen evidence of malfeasance or misspending, what would your firm have done?
Well, two things. Most likely we would not have been able to issue an audit opinion. If we can't rely on management's representations or the records provided, we would most likely withdraw from the audit or issue an opinion that states basically that we cannot rely on the records. So the fact that the audit opinion is unmodified, which I mentioned previously, and in layman's terms, that's what that means. It's a clean opinion that we did rely on management's representations. We audited the records, and as I stated, extended the audit an additional month in addition to what we normally planned, and did not find any issues to report back to you.
There's a former employee of the city who leveled some very specific allegations as to the financial health of this city.
Yeah.
Did you, I don't want to get into that person's name or anything. Everybody who's in the room listening right now knows who I'm talking about. Did you look at that person's accusations? And if so, what were your analysis?
So when I mentioned we extended the audit for additional month, really was to really focus on those specific allegations. And really what the nature of our work was to look for any evidence that corroborated any of those allegations to to support those allegations. We found none. But just to clarify, we weren't engaged to do that, but as part of our audit, we had to do that in order to issue an audit opinion. Again, had we found something that concerned us, your report would not have been unmodified.
If any resident has an issue with something that they believe was brought up by that former employee that you did not cover, to which governing authority should they take their complaints?
They would start with the city. Obviously, the state has and the county has auditor general's offices. So there's multiple avenues to report something if it is known as it relates to that.
I want to come back to the $515,000 of culture and recreation expenditures above and beyond. What was budgeted for? First off, define for me, if you will, please, what culture and recreation expenditures are. Secondly, what was budgeted? And obviously, third, if we're $515,000 over that amount, what caused the $515,000 of overage?
Well, culture and recreation refers to parks and recreation generally. Now the question, the 515,000 doesn't refer to a budget number. It's just the change in the actual numbers from one year to the next.
The increase.
The increase
Okay,
from.
so first off, you say it's parks and recreation. Are we talking about playground activities at Cagney Park, soccer stuff at?
It includes everything that relates to parks, including special events, including parks operations, everything that relates to parks operations.
Okay.
Right.
What did we budget for parks operations?
So in fiscal year 18, we budgeted $10,582,000, and their actual expenditures were $8,000,008.
Were what?
$8,879,000.
If we budgeted 10 million,
they were actually under budget. They were actually under budget, but the expenditures, what they actually spent in 2018 was 515 more than what they spent in 2017.
okay, so the 515 is an increase from one year to the next, not
Exactly.
what was in the budget.
That's right.
Okay. And if you were to tell us, you're stealing all my thunder to complain about all the special events that we do. If you were to give us the top 3 reasons that there was a budget deficit from year 1 to year 2, 2017 to 2018, what were the top 3 budget problems, that we had?
Well, it would be, so because we received that money, that the Solemia money that we received up front, we have the cash to be able to fund operations because it's not restricted in terms of, say, a grant, the way a grant would be. But we also have the ability to spend this money. Now, if we just look at the amount of money that we can raise in one fiscal year, and we compare that to what we can spend in one fiscal year, or finance, because we fund the year's operations with what we raise in that year, as well as what, if need be, we dip into funds that we collected in prior years. So the operating deficit, as we define it, is an excess of expenditures in this year over what we've raised in this year. We cannot report amounts that were collected in prior years as revenues again in this year. So therefore, just by that very nature, we'll have, if we spend more than what we raise in that year, we'll have an operating deficit. So I guess I've kind of lost my train of thought there.
Solemia redistribution of income, I guess, is item 1. What FEMA would be number 2?
All right. So yes, so the other reason would be the FEMA expenses. Those are completely unplanned, and well, we had to do what we had to do as a government to get the city back on track.
And number 3 would be what?
Well, the salaries that were the increases for a number of years. The employees that were furloughed and didn't get COLAs and get increases.
And
so
where
those
does
increases
the
were-
ERIP pension payments come into play in all of this?
Well, fortunately, the payments that relate to the ERIP plan are going to go away for the city for this year. So our contribution to the pension plan is actually going to go down this year in fiscal year 19.
For the year in question, I'm not worried about where we're going in the future right now for tonight's discussion. In the past, where did those ERIP pension payouts fall into the scale of 1 through 3, 1 through 5?
Well, it had an impact in terms of the contributions that the city made to the pension plans. The annual actuarial contribution that was required to fund the plans, those were increased as a result of the ERIP plan. So that contributed in terms of the expenditures that we had to make those contributions to the plans.
Is that falling under the COLA, the cost of living increases, or is that separate from the cost of living?
No, it's separate. It's separate.
Okay, so the pension items might fall 4th or 5th on your list if we're ranking top 5.
Well, it's a couple of billion, so it's significant enough that it can, especially with the numbers that we deal with, it is significant.
Cost of living was 3.7 million.
Well, for the police in 2017 it was 2.6, and then for the other employees 3.8. Merit and COLA.
Together, how much is that?
Over the 2 years, what, 5 million?
6.4.
6 million?
6.4.
million. Okay.
Plus the FEMA 1.7 will get you to 8.1.
Okay. That's all the questions I have right now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for all your work.
Now, thank you very much. Do we have any question for the auditor?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Although I did not have the amount of time I needed with the auditor due to some circumstance, I wanted to ask some specific question, Miguel and the auditor, I guess. First and foremost, management, and you guys are money folks. I don't think a lot of us are. We have attorneys, educators, and business folks up here. So a lot of the terms that you presented, I really did not understand, and I don't think member of the public did. So in layman term, I need you to be very specific in where I would be able to understand as a teacher.
Sure.
And I taught elementary where they would understand.
Sure.
So to start with question 1, and we have to blame ourselves, starting with me. It looks like, and this is where I'm not doing too good with this, because I was under the impression every year that we were doing okay. But when I looked at the financial health, 2016, almost 400,000, 2017, 4.8, 2018, 8.1. It is a concern, and I shared some of my colleagues where I think the deficit comes from. I understand the FEMA, but if there's another emergency tomorrow, we are in hurricane season, we need to be prepared and move forward. With that being said, I have some specific questions. First and foremost, to management. The real meat and potato of this, to me, is I don't know, and I don't want to use the word misled, but I think I was told that some of the funds that, well, let me start with this question first. How can we use a line item or a source of revenue on, when I met with the auditor and Miguel, on something that we expected? And I'm gonna be very specific, the Solemia money, the Costco, well, going back, there's a couple of questions within one, but in terms of the Costco money, why was it previously stated that that money was in our bank account when it wasn't in the budget?
Just a quick and understanding, Mr. Councilman Desul may understand that the city have a litigation in regards to our financial situation in our budget. Make sure we understand the.
No, I didn't know we have a legal.
The question under the for us
Miss
not
Attorney,
to
wait a
put
minute.
the city in jeopardy about and.
But I didn't know about the legal. Who do we have the legal thing with?
As indicated by Councilman Galvin, we do have a disgruntled former employee who has threatened litigation against the city and is currently appealing his termination before our personnel board.
I know, but that has nothing to do with my question.
I just want to make sure we.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, Mr. Manager.
So again, I guess I have to separate budget from cash.
Yes.
When we receive cash for transactions, that money goes into our bank account. You referred to the first year deficit. That was the first $4 million. We went from, on the graphic, from 347,000 to $4 million. Part of that was an accounting transaction that didn't have, the cash is still here, but the way we recorded the revenue in the books, or how we have to record our books, was required for us to show it a different manner. In showing in that different manner, it had the impact of the impact result, if you will, of us having a deficit fund balance. Fund balance is it's a scientific term, if you will, in accounting, and so it has.
I'm not a scientist. What I'm trying to figure out, because I don't really understand none of what you're saying.
Let me answer this first question.
Yes.
Your base question was, how do we use money that we're anticipating receiving?
Yes.
So every budget year, we spend anticipating receiving revenues. For instance, we get the property tax. You guys assess the property taxes in the summer, but we don't receive the actual money typically until April, May, and June of the following year. We still have to operate the city, so with our operating cash that we do have available from previous years in cash, we're able to operate the city until we receive the money.
Okay, my question was, I understand that the Costco money was supposed to be over time, I guess over 100 year or whatever, and I was under the impression that the Soleimani, so it's all confusing, over 100 years. So how do we use that into the budgeting process into a lump sum versus?
So because the actual physical cash is here, we can spend it. But from an accounting recording of the books, we have to show it in accordance with the GASB that, it's an old one. It's a matching principle, but we have to record it in the books a certain way for our financial statements, but for the purpose of you have a bank account, the money is there. The easiest example I can use is you have a mortgage, you have credit card payments and liabilities that are long-term, but in your bank account, you have cash, and you can actually, go to the movies and, maybe buy a car with your cash, even though you still have that, those obligations, those long-term obligations that you have scheduled to pay over a longer period of time. So that's kind of the best lay example I could give you, if you will.
Because the 3-line item that Councilman Galvin mentioned, which was the salaries, and we could talk about that in a few minutes, but the revenue from the sales, what sales? Because I don't know what sales, the $3 million that we are talking about.
So the specific $3 million was actually a sale that was supposed to result in the city receiving $8 million from Solomia. In their existing agreement with the city, they had an option to purchase an additional 20 acres of land for $400,000 an acre. As we were preparing that year's budget, and I want to say it was around August, middle of August, we received notification from the developer that they were exercising their option and they were intending to close on the sale by September, early September or October of the year. So we knew we were expecting those proceeds to come in.
Okay, how would you be expecting that and us as the body? I didn't even know about it until I heard something, because you saying somebody said, okay, I'm going to give North Miami $200 million. So you saying to us or to me that, okay, I'm going to use that $200 million, and then the person come back, or the council could have said, well, you know what, Mr. Manager, I don't want to use that money for whatever reason. So I'm trying to get in my mind, how do we spend something that we really didn't have in a way? We just, it's a forecast, or?
It was actually a little bit more than a forecast because I actually received a legal document stating.
I know, but wouldn't it be the subject of the council to accept that the sale, or was it something with you guys? No,
the sale, the option for the sale was already approved by the council. It's the developer's absolute right, and they exercised the right.
Okay, so it had nothing. It was nothing to do with the council, from my understanding. So you and the developer could just make that, from what I'm understanding tonight. So you and the developer could just make that decision on behalf of us.
No, you made the decision.
When?
When you approved the agreement.
What year? Before I got here. Before you got here.
Before I got here.
I got it. Okay. All right. So we moved that. Not good. But moving forward, do we understand that we just can't, because of this situation, we can't do these type of accounting? I know they may make sense in the world, but we are here because I'm rattling with two things tonight. The first one is that ever since I've been here, we've been in deficit. And then 1 year in specific, we asked about the reserve. And I was going around thinking that we got money in the reserve.
So we have cash, and we had this discussion last year when we presented the financial statements. And this is me speaking to you from my professional opinion. Last year, yes, we ended up with a deficit per our financial statements, but in large part because of an accounting transaction that had nothing to do with how much cash we have in the bank to use. This year, because revenue didn't come in, and if you look at that graphic that shows what we budgeted versus what we spent, we actually performed in accordance with what the council budgeted, except for the fact that the amount of revenues that we were anticipating to come in did not come in at the end of the day. And that contributed to the accounting deficit in our fund balance, or in our reserve balance.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman, one last question. Lastly, in reference to the 3.8 million in other employees, what does that mean, other employees?
That's
the non-police.
The non-police.
Right.
Okay.
That was the reference to non-police.
Okay, that's everyone else.
That's everybody. The blue collar, white collar, unions, everyone else.
But when we were talking about those two line items, specifically the police and non-police, I asked that specific question, were we okay? The answer was okay. Because my concern is, how would I know if we say this budget that we're getting ready to present for this year, like next year we're not here with a $20 million or a $10 million deficit? Because until the stuff started coming out, I was always under the impression we were not in the, what do you have a plan for us to get out of the deficit?
I am absolutely working on a plan to get us out of deficit. The budgeting director and I have been meeting frequently. We have some cut plans. Obviously, we got to. It's for you to decide how we ultimately do it. But we absolutely have a plan that for the next fiscal year, I think we are looking to add about $1.5 million back to reducing the number that we have, and that'll be a budgeted number. We could actually perform better, just depending on how things fall out. But we have a budget plan, if you will,
because
that will add back to the reserve.
The property taxes are a little bit up, so I think if we look at management and everything across the board, we should be doing, or that's what I would be looking
Absolutely.
forward to, and that just include everyone, every department, as you could
Absolutely.
call it.
Absolutely.
And is it part of the recommendation
It's
for
part
the
of the
management to
recommendation.
come
Yeah.
up
Yes,
with an
that's-
action plan
Right.
to
Yeah,
reduce
our
the
recommendation
budget
is,
within 5 years?
and what we've seen in similar situation, barring some windfall of revenues, you would try to cure this within a 3 to 5 year period, which would be our recommendation and would be what's considered reasonable. Yeah.
To cure it within 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
We should
Or
try to do
hopefully
it sooner.
before, but
Yeah.
you know.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
You done?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Madam. Oh, your question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you.
And you stay for public hearing. Public hearing is now open.
Good evening, Jim Garrett, 11610 North Bay Shore Drive. The first thing we need to do in a budget process, which I don't see us doing, but Coconut Creek and other cities
Can
do.
you use the microphone?
Yes,
more?
yeah, I'm sorry,
okay.
Mayor Benjamin.
Hmm.
We do not include revenues, projected revenues in our budget book. I don't see it when we get a budget. We only do expenses. There's no revenue side to the equation. So like Coconut Creek, if you look at their draft or their first copy of their budget that they give to the citizens, it has the revenue side of it with the projections. Second, Councilman Keys, that issue on the land sale, the $3 million, that was in 17, not 18. That $3 million land sale that we counted on was in the 17 year. The next one is our problem is our payroll. It's our staffing. We're not this is what we should be doing. We should be working smarter than harder. That's been my issue with you. It's that we need to benchmark us against other cities, and we need to clean up our performance. Look at Coconut Creek. Look at Davie. They're similar size. Davie is less than us, and they have less less employees, and they have more services. No, they have more citizens. Excuse me. We need to look at that. We need to look at the revenue side. I've been doing this since 2000. I've been doing this since 2003 on the accounting side when I got promoted up to controller. And you always underestimate your revenues and overestimate your expenses. That's what you do in a budget. And you manage your budget to your actual expenses. That means that you do your accounting entries every month. You do your accruals, you do your encumbrances, you do all your entries every month, and you close out the month every month, and you prepare financials. That way a normal business does.
Public hearing.
Good evening, Council. Jessica Alston, 1140 Northwest, 125 Street in Sunkist Grove. Auditors, you said you relied on the records provided by management and management representations, and you saw no wrongdoing. Management has done nothing wrong, and there was nothing improper. That is just extraordinary. That's extraordinary. We need an impartial forensic audit, because this audit was absolutely unsatisfactory. I have a question. Where was the $250,000 in expenditures for the against the bond campaign in 218? Where are those expenses hidden?
You have 2 minutes, Miss. You have 2 minutes, and they will answer your questions after.
There was a problem so much with this budget that somebody lost their employment. And for you not to find anything is absolutely unsatisfactory.
My name's William Simpson. I'm exempt from giving my address. However, I don't really think it matters because I've been getting dead rats, snakes, rats left in traps left by my truck during the campaign. So it doesn't really matter. I've got a real quick question. I want everybody in this room to listen to what I'm going to say. 2017 and 2018, the actual reserves were 4.3, showing on the city's transparency portal. 2018, 2019, the amended budget reserves are shown as 23.5 million. 2018, 2019, actual reserves, 1.35 million. But when you click on it, you get a big fat zero. How do we go? I want to know. I don't know. I'm not an accountant, but I do understand addition and subtraction. How do we go from 1 year, 4.3 million reserves, all of a sudden we bump up to 23.5 million reserves shown on your website, to 2018-19 actual 1.35 million, and then you click on it and it shows a big fat zero.
Good evening, everyone. A question.
Can you please, can you say your name, your address?
Sorry. My name is Luz Garcia. My address is 1475 Northeast 131 Street. Somebody here live in
Please,
14?
you are talking to us.
No? Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
This morning, police officer come to the street, lock a door, say need to move every car parking. Some people have.
Thank you. It's not about the coffee. It's about a complaint from code enforcement. The chief of police is in the back. He will be able to.
Personal conversation?
Yes,
no
he's the chief of police.
Ah, okay.
He's going to help you.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Laura Hill, 13075 Griffin Boulevard. I want to take the opportunity to thank Scott Galvin and the staff for answering several questions I had. I think part of the issue at hand is a disconnect. I think Councilman DeSolme mentioned it. We're all not trained CPAs. We sit in this room and listen to snippets of what's going on at City Hall every 2 weeks. And even after doing that time and time again, it's really unclear if we have any money or not. We have an operating deficit. We've got $63 million in the bank. We thought we had $5 million in the reserves. It's confusing, and it's hard to always keep up with it. And I think that's where a lot of the problem is perhaps some more efficient communication about where we're at financially. I think that there's a lot of very poor optics. We have an infrastructure that has so many problems with our pipes all over Miami-Dade, but in our city too, and we see a lot of spending on things that seem over the top. A lot of the parties and the events is optics, and maybe we have a healthy reserve. We have had property values increasing from a lot of investment in neighborhoods, which is a great thing. But it is still very hard to know if we have any money. And when an employee comes with allegations such as the case right now, we pay attention to that, we pay attention to what's being said. But I think some of the frustration is not seeing it from both sides of the fence, from people inside the bubble of City Hall who are trained professionals to deal with finance, and those of us who just have our homes and our families and our lives here. So just trying to communicate the financial health of our city would be a really good thing in a more clear, efficient manner. Thank you.
Should we have a transparency portal that gives everybody full-time, real-time access?
If all of the input was there, it would be easy to, if you sit there and you look at it, you can't get all the input. Like Manager Spring has said, a lot of those deposits don't come in till later. So unless somebody's going to hold my hand and look through it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
We're flogging a horse worse than it's Santa Anita right now.
Yes.
No, thank you, but appreciate my frustration because I hear everybody's anger. I try to help get those answers. I ask the questions on the record and at town hall, and I'm still being told it's not enough. So I don't know what more I can do.
Thank you.
That was the message conveyed.
Public hearing is still open on the item.
William Prevotel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. First, I want to thank everyone for their participation in this and their support of the auditing process, and somewhat relieved of the results that maybe things are a little bit more intact than some had perceived. Very good news. I wanted to follow up on what was just mentioned a little bit earlier. Maybe there is some way of giving a little bit of an update, not a protracted presentation that we often have that may last 15 minutes, but maybe there's a chance of every month or every quarter having almost a 60-second or 2-minute presentation with a slide that says, here's where the city stands, we have this, we expense that. Just very simple. It could almost be
we have
minimized.
quarterly budget synopsis presented. That's what's driving me crazy. We're doing everything you're suggesting that
all
we
the
do
receipts and everything.
Well, I see, but a lot of times the presentations seem to go on. A long time seem to be very focused and very detailed. I'm just saying, almost like opening up the meeting and saying, and here's our 60 seconds of bang, 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 bang. Thanks. Let's get on with the meeting. If that might meet their needs, in addition to a portal and such. I'm just saying, but here's where we are. We're on the same footing. Bang, bang, bang.
But they already said they're not expert.
Right.
Whatever we provide the information,
RSM has audited us.
Everything is online.
The state has audited us.
No. I'm just saying for the sake of some public members that wanted to have a little more information. This is not has nothing to do with that. It's just if you're saying like a little more transparency or just trying to keep people up to date, that might be a way of doing it. Just a quick single slide, bang, bang, bang.
People.
Right.
They don't trust them. They don't trust the auditor. They don't trust the finance director.
Okay. I was trying to help bridge the last speaker with the council. I may have failed at that effort.
Doing
but thank you.
exactly what everybody has asked us to do.
Okay.
Evening, Tanjum Hossein, 900 Northeast 129th Street. Pardon my French. Holy crap on a stick. 8 million. See, I think that's the disconnect, right? So, I think some of us, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'll speak for myself. I think some of us feel, well, I'm not going to break Robert's rule, that some people are feeding us a dog and pony show that, oh, it's not as bad, we came in under budget, blah, blah, blah. We're still over $8 million in deficit, right? I mean, I think we all get that. I feel bad for this gentleman here. I think he's nervous. Because we're not angry at you, right? We're not angry at anybody. Oh, okay, I'm talking for everybody here. But it's not about anger. But going forward, as Dr. Desilme, you said, it needs to be done, the solution needs to be done sooner than 3 to 5 years, right? So I think as you're formulating the upcoming year's budgets, that you might consider maybe eliminating this deficit sooner and then maybe building up the reserves to let's say a reasonable amount. I don't know what a reasonable amount is, what's typical in other cities, maybe 50% of a typical year's operating expenses, maybe 100%, maybe more. But have a plan presented to us that says, this is how much we have, this is how we're going to eliminate the deficit. Not, I think in the CAFR, management said that they're anticipating cuts of 3% to budget, or whatever it is. But maybe be a little bit more aggressive, have it laid out, like, okay, yes, we have the transparency portal, yes, we have these quarterly budget analyses, but let us know that it will be solved in this amount of time, and maybe a little bit more aggressive, again, as Dr. Desilme said. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Judy Brown, 1100 Northwest 128 Terrace. My question is this, and I'm on the fence here, because I'm still seeking, like others, to find out this culture event where you have $550 million spent. thousands of dollars that's being spent, sorry. Now, under the parks, what he talked about on the parks, you're saying that all the culture events is on the Parks and Recreation, and that all of this money is what we are trying to get here. And like Councilman Dissime said, and I think it would be clear, if we could have a delineation where you just lumped it, culture events, parks and recreation. Because one of the questions that I asked at the meeting that Councilman Gavin had was how much money is spent on, the parties and the entertainment. And that's what we want to know, because like Councilman Dissime said, I was under the impression that we were doing pretty good, until we get this, because we have had and do have regular audit, little presentation. Assistant manager Sore gets up and others, and he's done those on the presented those because that's what the state order had said previously. So I'm just still at a sort of like a daze to see, like everybody else, that we are so far, underwater. I didn't think that it was going to be like this, but I'm still trying to find out, and I'm still seeking, what, when you lump all this, parks must be doing a heck of a job and all this stuff. It seems though that you're putting it on parks, and it's not really parks. But this is the way you're doing it. It's just like an umbrella. So it falls on the cultural events, parks and recreation, and I don't think that's fair.
Thank you very much. And Derek and Mr. Finance Director, I think people, the residents, they don't care about the $3.8 million for COLA. They don't care about the $2.6 million increase for the police department. They worry about the $515,000 for culture events. Can you break down that for us?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Do you have, where is Park and Rec? Can we break down that and tell me exactly? Wait, please.
No, because my question is based on that.
That you're done, wait.
No, I'm not done, Mr. Mayor. But I'm
public
saying,
hearing. We're going to come.
Okay. So
Let's
once he's
answer
finished.
that 500 and...
Because I want other departments to come also.
That
Mayor,
500...
I don't think the director...
A more explanation about it. Is it special event, like mayor and council?
Well, some of it is special events. I mean, I
Okay.
have like a detail of the expenditures.
Can you,
for parks for 2017.
Okay.
But it's a 24-page report, so we'd have to go through and see.
Can we make it
where-
available to the public?
We can.
Okay. That's mean, can we do that before we leave tonight? That's mean make copies and everybody can get one?
Can we post it tomorrow?
Okay. It will be posted, the $515,000. Where did we spend the money?
See, the $515,000 is just looking at overall expenditures.
I understand
from
people
one year
think
to the
it's
next.
special event that cost that money. You are going to say something?
No.
Like programs. Is it a part of that 515,000?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So we will break out programs, the actual special events portion of what we post tomorrow.
Okay. Can we do that for us? Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask my question now, Mr. Mayor? Mr. Manager, Ms. Brown just actually, the educator just popped. Why is it only cultural event that in that year, Mr. Miguel, 2017, that was the only department that went over?
No, it's not.
So what, okay.
No, but
wait, hold on, sir. Okay, because I got part of my question. So what I would want is, and I don't know how you could get me or when, every department and where they are, just like you have, because I don't think it's fair that you have Parks and Rec here. Only. So, yes, sir.
Well,
No,
I was going to say, can I explain that context? Contextually,
I would love to hear it.
Okay. We were looking at, what he's doing is giving you context to the financial statements as a whole, with everything mixed in. So he was looking at major points where there were differences in expenditures from one year to the next. It is not an indication of them operating over or under budget. It's
Larry,
just how much
it's
they
not,
spend.
It's
I mean,
really
we can
not.
we can
You
give
understand what I'm
want.
saying?
We
Because
can give you what you want.
it's really not, because now my eyes is, it's really not fair. And I understand his point, but every little penny that went over is a contribution of where we are. So I understand they went over 515. I need Mr. Manager, from IT, the police, every department that year, because there has to be an underlying why, and I'm waiting to hear your explanation. Was it only that department that was highlighted? Because to me and to the residents here, I don't think you understand what it wouldn't make sense if you're saying that they the only one out of all your department that you want to bring an example out of.
Well, can I explain the
Please.
515? Okay, so that $515,000 difference, it comes from a schedule that's actually in the management discussion and analysis in the 2017 CAFR. So in that schedule, it shows the different categories of the city's operations, and those are general government, which includes finance, accounting, budget, IT.
Yeah, I don't know what you're saying.
And then,
okay.
no, but let me just explain though. So when I was looking for the major differences, because from one year to the next, from 2016 to 2017, there was a $3.6 million increase in expenditures, actual expenditures year over year. So of that, 2.6 related to public safety. I just picked the higher ones. Just the
No, I need everything. No, no, no.
Just to
No,
give you
no,
some
that's not right. Yes,
We will give
that's
you
not
everything.
right. Thank you.
Public hearing still open on the CAFR.
Claudia Pasmino, 13504 Northeast 23rd Place. I do not know much about budgets, but in the back of my mind, what keeps ringing is lawsuits. We got a lot of lawsuits going on in the city, so we're already in the red. That means we're going to be more in the red. So when you guys try to balance out the budget, remember that we do have lawsuits.
And just a quick answer, and Mr. City, most of the lawsuits are paid by the insurance. It doesn't cost the city money.
Yes,
it's insurance related.
Yeah, the bigger claims are covered by insurance.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and
Yes.
council members. Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. Mr. Mayor, no disrespect, but I do take exception to $3.8 million and $2.6 million pay raises over a period of 2 years, over and above what was budgeted increase.
None.
6.4. I'm going to go by what I saw. $6.4 million pay increase between 2017 and 2018. Pay increase is what it said. Am I wrong? COLA
Can you explain
increase?
Because
the five?
no,
Hold
okay.
I reserve. Take back my time.
No, that's we go.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Reclaiming my time.
No, the increase that you see is an increase of actual 1 year versus another, not budget.
Okay.
So the amounts that were presented as salaries for that year were budgeted for those amounts.
Okay. So, but the slide said $2.6 million increase for the police department.
Yes.
2017. Increase over 2016.
Actually.
$2.6 million increase.
Yes.
$3.8 million increase over 2017 for 2018. So there was a $6.4 million payroll increase of salaries over the salaries of the previous year for the employees in a 2-year period.
Because you remember all the furlough day, all the 2% COLA they didn't get for the past 7 years, and all the stories.
Wait, you made that up. You made that back up when the economy was bad. Come back to the budget in 2012, 13, and 14. We started repaying back the employees what they should have gotten. Then this continued on. But my question is that we need to be very careful. And when you ask for stuff and ask for pay increases, that we can afford it. When we get one-time money from Solomia, $8 million or $20 million, it's one-time money. One-time money is not reoccurring money you're going to get every year to do your budget with. It's money you should be able to set aside. Should be able to do those special projects, do those really special things, because it's not coming back. We got one-time money before, and you set it aside. Your general fund is coming by reoccurring funds, taxes and building permits. And the other thing is, I know you're working toward this year's budget. It would be foolish to even think that you can lower the millage rate this year from 7.5 down to 6.5 or that drastic of a cut. If you can take the little bit of increase that's coming and use it to solve your deficit from last year before you start giving us back an artificial tax relief of maybe $30, $40 per resident. I'd rather you take that money and put it and solve the deficit that that Alex was speaking about. And the four of you right there, Carol Keys, Scott Galvin, Mayor, Alex, or Mr. Somay, you all were here for the last 4 years. You're responsible for them. You're responsible to know about it. You're responsible to know about it. The manager spends the money at your direction. It is nobody else's fault if it's accounting or whatever, but the perception out here is that we're overspending money, and we all know how accountants go, and we all understand that, you know, the deficit's not maybe there. We have money in the bank. We're not broke, but it's the perception. And you all just went through some very tough campaigns. And what did everybody bring up? They were talking about the city was spending so much money.
No, don't say everybody.
The community, that lots of communities were complaining that they thought the city
expired.
Okay, but I reclaim some time. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
What we're trying to say
but we
is
do
that
understand, as far as the budget deficit, and we talked about it, the management and the recommendation of the audit firm, and we have to come up with a plan to be able to balance a budget and add money to a reserve. Yes.
Mark Sell, 15051 Royal Oaks Lane, North Miami. Not a statement, but a question. Hurricane season is upon us, as is climate disruption. What is the latest amount in the General Reserve Fund? And what was the amount in that reserve fund September 30th of 2018 and 2017, just so that we have clarity? And how do we pay for another Irma or worse coming through?
When it comes to FEMA, we answer it now. Can you answer it again?
Can I, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
We have what the presentation that the auditors made answer that question.
Can you go on the microphone and restate it? If they've already said it again, let's say it 20 times.
So they've already answered that question. And the other portion of the question, what do we do in a hurricane? We'll do what we did the last hurricane. We have cash reserves available to be able to make the payments
yes,
for
sir.
debris and removal and everything.
You have 2 minutes.
So.
And we
the
answer your
auditors have already answered the question, and what was the answer for the dim among us who might not remember the amount of the reserves?
Okay. So in terms of accounting reserve, there is no accounting reserve presented on the general fund because we have an operating deficit. Accounting standards do not allow you to present a reserve if you have a budget, not a budget, but an operating
Our problem
deficit.
is we have a failure to communicate. You're speaking totally and professionally in CPA jargon. Can we please just say the answer in real terms? I thought I laid it out pretty easily. We have $42 million in cash right now. If Hurricane Andrew times 5 came through and we needed 20 million, we could go into that money and then get FEMA to repay us hopefully at some point. Is that accurate? Is that where we would get the money if a storm came through?
Yes, that is accurate, and that's the process we will follow.
So even though for accounting and budgeting purposes, we put everything in these neat categories that are in a book that everybody gets to look at, in reality, it comes down to what we have in the bank. I might have a budget every month, what I can spend on entertainment, food, my mortgage, but in reality, it comes down to what's in cash in my bank account. It's the same for the city. Everything is in one account, and we go to where when we need it, we go there and we get it. So we have $42 million in cash in the bank, and $21 million in assets.
Public, it's one time, please. One time.
I didn't use my full 2 minutes. I want my answer to my question where we went from 4.3 million to 23.5 to nothing.
Can we answer that question, please? Rather than create headaches for me tomorrow when he calls me and says, and I pass along to you in an email. Answer the freaking question. Answer the question. Let's answer the question. Let's be here all night. Let's be here all night. Let's do this. But here's what's frustrating the bejesus out of me. We keep doing this. We keep giving you the answers, and this.
Councilman, public hearing is still open on the item.
Can we answer Bill's question, please? Please, point of personal privilege.
It's one time. We're going to come to that. We're going to answer everybody's question at the end. That's what we are going to do. At the end, we're going to answer everybody's questions. Yes.
Hello, everybody. Marisol Medina, 1270 Northeast 124th. We wanted to look into the budget increase for the council as well. I want to see, you know, within this department how they spent. And I do have a concern with the Parks and Recs department. The Parks and Recs department is great, but I feel like a lot of what they're spending is for entertainment purposes versus what they need with improvements and adding parks and having more fun. And that portion that stays around. But I was asked to ask that question, so please, if we could look into what the council spends, and also, I'm sorry, the increases. Are the increases listed also within the departments so that we could look into council's pay increase, the police department's increase, or our management group, so that we can see, you know, where that money has been increased over the entire city? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Public hearing.
We spend too much on events. That's what this is all about. We spend too much
Mayor
on
and
events.
Council, Bob Pashon, 13005 Coronado Terrace. I guess what we learned tonight is we spend too much money. And we've been spending too much money for a long time. Part of the problem is we can't live within our allowance. And when we spend more than our allowance, there's no adult around to say you can't keep spending it. And that's been going on for a long time. You, sir, when you pull this number out of how much we spend on parties and the like, I'd like to identify police overtime into the number. Because we spend a lot of money on those. We've been understaffed for a while, so the cops that are working at overtime, and that's just part of the number. So either we've got to learn how to create a budget properly, or we've got to learn how to live within a budget. I come from running businesses with a budget much larger than this city's budget. And if we ran a budget like this, lots of people would have been fired. Because you just can't run it like that. You can't run a business like this, and you certainly can't run a city like this. So my one question, I guess, is what are we going to do different? Because you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result, because we know what that's the definition of. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patrick, 195 Northeast 133rd Street.
Sir, can you please state your last name?
It's
Your
not,
full
it's
name,
irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Your full
Can
name
you
is
state it,
required.
your
James.
Your full name, please?
Patrick James.
Thank you.
My situation that brought me here actually is I've been living in that neighborhood for about 18 years. I'm your neighbor. A lot of, you know, city and members of the city and in charge lives in that area. I lost 2 dogs in that in Second Avenue Street. We've been begging for speed bumps for a while. We have police officers alike that driving to that neighborhood at 100+ miles an hour. It's ridiculous, and I have witnesses that could attest for that. I'm hearing a lot of money being spent, and we've been asking for something as simple as speed bumps. Me and a couple of neighbors, we even decided to do it ourselves. But what we got is that it's the It's not the city, it's county, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't make any sense for residential area, kids friendly even, 100 plus miles an hour cars driving through. What is it gonna take for one of our kids to get run over? Before we're like, okay, let's see into it. You live next door to me, sir.
I know that.
Okay. So what is it gonna take? I'm not gonna come to your door and knock and say I told you so.
I need speed bump too, but do understand that when I address the Department of Transportation, they said a survey need to be done, and we spent $75,000 on the survey. When we send it to the county, they said no, it's not required. They didn't approve speed bump on Northeast 2nd.
I drive through several good, decent neighborhoods that have speed bumps everywhere. You could stop that buzzer. That has speed bump everywhere. Like, seriously. I lost 2 dogs in 1 month. That's family members.
I know that.
And I'm hearing a lot of recreational parties, et cetera, et cetera. Call me. Those parties will cost you like a couple of hundred with good food, not a couple of thousands. I'm a chef. That's ridiculous. Speed bumps. Come on.
We will address that again with the transportation department I think we even have to call a workshop with the commissioner of the county, because it's everywhere throughout the city that residents are asking for speed bumps, traffic circle, and it's a big, big issue. It's not just Northeast 2nd, but I remember in my budget we had over $200,000 for speed bump and traffic circle, and the county denied all of them. I think we got to speak with John O'Brien if we have to conduct another survey and address that, because not just Northeast 2nd, but it's throughout the entire city where people need speed bump. Public hearing still open on the CAFA. No one come in. Public hearing is now closed. Do we have any? Okay, now can you try to answer those questions for me, some of the questions?
I took some notes here. One question was about the bond expenditures. It wasn't 250,000. It was 100,000 that was approved by.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry. It was 100,000 that was appropriated by the board, and it should be, those expenditures should be in the general government category in the capital report. With regards to the transparency portal, I put out a memo through both Councilman Galvin and Councilwoman Keys. I've explained several times that you're looking at live data, and so we don't post a reserve. That's a budgeting. That's something that will be included in the budget. We show it as a fall. I guess at the completion of your financial statements, when you have the difference between your expenses and your revenues. And the transparency portal is going to change every 8 hours, because every time accounting posts a revenue, every time they write a check, and the entry posts, it changes. I've explained that by the end of the year, we will get to an item. At the town hall meeting, I also explained that we will look at the portal and see if there's a cleaner way to show our end of period financial reporting. To Mr. Garrett's point, to possibly show a month-end unaudited accounting statement or a financial statement that can be used to kind of give people perspective. And we're working on that right now. Other than that, everything else was suggestions.
Okay. Did that answer the question? What was the question?
I'd like to see
Specific.
Mr. Simpson's question directly addressed. Mr. Simpson, does that answer your question?
No, I don't understand.
I want to, yeah, right.
Yes.
Help me out. I don't understand how we can go from 4.3, where did the 19 million come or whatever to jack it up to 24 million, and then it whoosh.
I will make myself available tomorrow all day. I'll make,
It's here, and then it's gone.
Bill, I've gone above and beyond in trying to get you every answer you need. Mr. Manager, I am free all day tomorrow. If Mr. Simpson is free all day tomorrow, I will make myself available for us to sit down and answer every single question, if necessary, on tape.
Thank you. Are we set? Carol, do you have any question? Any other questions? I have a sheet in front of me. It's a, and I asked the administration to prepare that for me because I realized that our revenues went down year after year. And I'm going to share with you some numbers. For example, in 2014, for the water that we are buying from the county, we used to pay $1,714 per thousand of gallons from the county. The rate has been increased by $1,762. Did we pass it to the residents? The rate increase? No. I have another sheet. In 2012, Westport used to charge $15.20 monthly for the sanitation. And we used to charge $21.20. That was a $6 for the city. And at that point, the city was making $721,000. In 2019, Westport charged $29.74, and we are losing $8.54. That's a total of $1,027,464. That's what we are losing now. From making $700,000 in 2012, when they used to charge $15, and now they're charging $29, and we are losing $1 million. Did we pass it to the residents?
No, we didn't.
No. It came from the budget. We have another sheet, the same sheet. In 2010, 2011, the city of North Miami used to contribute $1.1 million to MOCA. In 2012, the budget of MOCA was $5 million. And they used to raise $4.3 million. In 2018, they are raising about $400,000. 2017, the same thing. 2016, $377,000. 15, $400,000. The budget is about $2.4 million every year. Do you still need MOCA? Yes. You said you need it. Oh, no, you don't. Okay.
We absolutely do. Oh, God.
Okay.
I'll be
We got to come with all the numbers, okay? We need MOCA. But understand that you have to pay the $2.8 million every year. Where did the money come from? Did we pass it to the residents? No. It was a part of the budget. In 2014, we were able to eliminate the second meter for Keystone and Sans Souci, most likely. We used to charge $37 quarterly for the water base and $50.64 for the sewer base. Those are a total of about $600,000. Who pay for it? We eliminate that, not the residents. When I came in 2014, the millage was 7.9336. Right now, the millage is 7.5. Half-point decrease. And we have other numbers. We talked about the police department, $2.6 million increase. We create the social service department, $600,000 every year. And I think it's important for the residents. We need to continue to increase that, the social service department for the residents. Infrastructure improvements. From 2016 to 2019, the city spent $17.7 million on infrastructure improvement in the city. All those are from the budget. And we did not increase nothing. As a matter of fact, we were able to lower the millage from 7.9 to 7.5. For the past 4 years, the sanitation, a deficit of close to $4 million that you did not pay for it. I see people are talking about events. That means about $20 million. We did not pass it to the residents, and we did not increase your property taxes. We did not increase any tax throughout the city. And I think we're going to close the CAFA report, right? If you need those numbers, and you can pass it to the resident, they can review it and see what we've been doing since 2014, because I've been on the dais for 6 years. That's when I'm responsible for the budget deficit. That's why it was important for me to share those numbers with you. Do we want to continue to spend $2.6 million on the police department? Do we still need to spend $2.8 million on MOCA? Do we have to continue to subsidize the sanitation, the second meter? Or do we have to continue to lower the millage? That's mean it's not just events. we do understand that we need to do a better job as far as fiscal responsibility. And I asked the administration to prepare a plan to cut the deficit. And I think this year, the employees, because the money that we get from Solemia, we've been giving them increase. We get rid of furlough and a lot of things. But understanding this year budget, we're going to have to do some sacrifices. And this is where we are. And thank you. And now, can I hear a motion on the consent agenda? Should we proceed with the agenda? If we don't have any...
I got a quick question.
On the budget?
No, we done. Mr. Mayor, real quick question. Ms. Attorney, I have one item. I don't want to name the item, but so just know that's why I'm voting where I am on the consent agenda. Just
you want to remove it?
Not necessarily. I don't want to get into it. I'll just vote no on it. Thank you.
None what? Why don't you remove that item? And for discussion.
Yeah. It's okay. Administration spoke to me about it. I'm all right with it.
The public would like to.
No, that's okay. They'll be all right. They'll be okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I hear a motion on the consent?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion made by Vice Mayor Carol Keys, a second by Councilwoman Estimate Irvin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All right, item passes.
Let me ask a question before. Oh, it's E. Go ahead. Where are we at, Madam Clerk?
We are now at tab F, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, authorizing the city manager to issue purchase orders to Bancorp Bank for the lease purchase of 24 vehicles at a cost not to exceed $780,000 over a 5-year term, in accordance with the terms of the existing municipal master lease agreement, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members.
Madam Vice Mayor, can you take over, please? Carol.
Yes, good evening. Alberto Estrade, Purchasing Director. The item that you have before you under tab F is staff's request for your approval to include an additional 24 vehicles under the existing master lease purchase agreement that the city has with the Bancorp Bank for a not to exceed amount of $780,000. As reflected in the council report, on July 14, 2015, the City Council approved and awarded the results of solicitation IFB 200315, seeking proposals for the financing of lease purchase of vehicles by the city, and was awarded to Bancorp. Subsequent to the meeting, the city entered into a master lease purchase agreement with Bancorp with a maximum financing amount of $10 million and an initial term of 3 years with 2 additional 1-year renewal options. Thereafter, on March 13, 2018, the council authorized the exercise of the first initial 1-year renewal of this master lease agreement, and also approved the addition of 28 vehicles under the city's lease purchase program. Most recently, in April of this year, April 9th of this year to be exact, the council approved the exercise of the second and last 1-year renewal of this master lease agreement, and also added an additional 6 vehicles under this agreement. Staff is now seeking the council's approval under this item to add an additional 24 vehicles under the master lease agreement. The financing rate for the city is prime plus 0.15%. With me here tonight in support of this item is the city's vehicle fleet manager, Mr. Jeff Geimer, in the event that you have any questions for us, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. We open the public hearing. Would anybody like to speak on this matter?
Hello, Marisol Medina, 1270 Northeast 124th. I really quickly did the numbers on the vehicles and the amount, and we're getting close to like $2.5 million on vehicles, and they do vary from 1 year to 5 years in their leases. I just wanted to make a point to mention that to the whole group of the amount that we're spending on the vehicles just this year alone on renewals. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close public hearing. We have questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Councilman?
Yes, thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I think we need to just, I'm not saying to pause, but I'm going to definitely moving forward be asking more questions, because I believe part of what we are, where we are today, and I do take part of the responsibility of what administration been presenting. This was budgeted, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Yes, so what would happen if we don't get these? What would happen? Because we got to start thinking out of the box now. Because these taglines, I remember I was sitting here a couple months ago, one meeting, we spent like $3 million, and all of a sudden, oh my God, we're in the $8 million, and a lot of it was in the consent agenda. So I am going to be a little bit more mindful with these votes. Why do we need the fleet? Ms. Medina was part right, because I knew this earlier this year we had some items for the fleet. So what would happen? I need, sir, 1 second. I would need a scenario of what would happen if we were to be very mindful and say, okay, we are in a position right now of, we got to look at everything and start questioning and not giving the red light. So what would that do for us? And what is the necessity of where we need that? Because I thought all of the police cars was already purchased.
I'm going to just give a short, and then I'll defer to Jeff Geimer to explain in detail of some of the vehicles that we will be replacing. All of the patrol vehicles, we have been working to replace them all of the patrol vehicles. However, we do have other vehicles there, and this still
No, hold on, Mr. Deputy. Yes. Couple meetings ago, I asked this question, and I asked the police department, all of the patrol police folks who are on the street has a new car.
Yes.
Okay. So we don't necessarily need this in a way right now. Not that we don't need it, but because my concern is the police have, the police who are actually doing the patrol have what they need. And if they don't, I have another concern with that, because I was told that they did. So I'm glad you say they do. So what do we need these cars for, and for whom?
Good evening, Jeff Geimer, Capital Project Manager. I oversee the city's fleet as well. The majority of the cars, you can go down the list. We're going to be doing upfitting on 2 vehicles. The rest of the vehicles are for detectives and administrative type personnel. The vehicles we're doing upfitting on are specifically, one is going to be utilized by PAL, and that's going to be their 4-door truck, because they have to move a lot of stuff, and a police vehicle is not the right vehicle for that. And then another vehicle is a Dodge Durango. We're going to get one of those, and we're going to upfit that like a police car as well. The officers that are assigned units that are on the road on a day-to-day basis have vehicles that have been upgraded. The vehicles that have not been upgraded, and you will occasionally see Ford Crown Victorias out there that are still 7 to 10 years old. Those are the pool vehicles, the spare vehicles that they have to use when their vehicles are brought in for service. So there are still a number of Crown Victorias that are in the fleet that we're still trying to phase out of the fleet.
Okay.
With this administrative vehicle package, though, what we're also doing is we're saving the city money, because we're going away from the rental on a month-to-month basis of the vehicle and going to a 5-year lease. And it's actually going to save us money over the long term if you look at over a 60-month, because of what we're paying on a month-to-month basis. We're actually saving money by going to a 60-month lease to own.
Okay, now you just raised some other concerns. So for almost $1 million, what if we didn't pass this? What would that do to us, Mr. Manager? No. This is for you, budget-wise.
I don't, budget-wise, we wouldn't spend the money.
Okay, why wouldn't you?
Because you're not approving the expenditure.
That's what I'm saying, but can we reallocate it to, okay, Mr. Manager, what I'm saying, if
No,
we.
that's- can we
you get
use the
what I'm
money for
saying.
something else? Or-
Well, to help out,
Right.
because right now that's what we need. We
I
need
don't-
to help out.
Is the source of this all general fund?
We still have rental vehicles that we would have to keep the officers
So
the,
we're
in
spending,
rental vehicles.
so we're still spending them, we're still spending money.
No, okay, you're not, okay. Mr. Manager, that's not the answer that I was looking for.
What is the answer you're looking for?
The answer is that you just said that we are spending money. I don't know how much is we still spending money.
No,
So if there's a comparison, I'll need to know the rental, that he brought, the issue that it may be more. So I would like for me,
To see that analysis.
the
See that
analysis of
analysis.
both.
We can give you that
And then
analysis.
because, and I'm not saying that because here's the hard part, and I think we have to take a step back, and everything sounds pretty good when it comes to the library, to the police, this and that, because it's public safety. At the end of the day, one of us have to pay for it, and I am being a little hard on myself because I cannot imagine me been sitting here for 4 years, allow this to go down. So I'm not going to do that anymore. So if I'm going to be the lone vote of no to a lot of these things, I will be. I don't mind doing that because I'm not going to just rubber stamp. And so I'm going to ask the questions that we need to ask. So the gentleman that left, there's a lot of different answers. Like I said, I did not meet with the auditor as much as I can, but with these items, especially these line items, and I'll be looking at the consent agenda very careful, just so that the public will know and my colleague here will know. I don't have no angry on, I'm not feeling good the fact that we are where we are tonight. So part of my stuff is you saying that if the 780
Well,
hypothetically did not,
why don't we do this? Because
Yes, sir.
I want you to have the information that you need.
Yes.
I know we have a timeline. I don't know if 2 weeks messes with it at all. So why don't we give you the analysis to show you where
let
the
me see
savings
what they-
is, and then we can bring the item back at the next meeting.
I would prefer my colleagues do what they do. I'm just talking for me.
No, but I want to
generally,
satisfy your information needs as well.
I'd like to see an analysis,
Okay.
please, so why don't we just
Okay, thank
make a
you.
motion to continue to the next meeting?
Second.
And then also, what I would like to see is what is absolutely urgent that we change now. Or, I mean, I understand we're doing some savings, but if we could not spend at all, that'll be great. But
And-
what are the vehicles that absolutely need to be changed right now on an urgent basis?
So,
I'd like to see that.
one contextual point, and he just made it, was we still are spending on a monthly basis. We're spending money, so I'll try to figure out how I kind of show that in the analysis.
Yes, but we
Right.
just need to know, for me, who, because the police, the people who are out patrolling are the most important to me. So if somebody, you can't be investigating something year round. So I don't know, I'm trying to make sense. If you're not doing something for 2 months, you don't need I don't know how the contract works. You might have to educate me, the
we'll do that.
chief, as far as do they need it by contract? Because a large chunk of where we are is, like you said, do we need, if we have 10 rentals, do we need those 10 rentals like the councilwoman suggesting versus a little bit 5? We just have to
I got you.
kind of help
And
out.
we'll,
Okay.
we'll provide all that. in the
Thank
report.
you.
Are we done? Done? A quick question. When you said 780,000 over 5 years, that means you're not spending 700 every year or 700 within 5 years?
That's the total over 5 years, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. The 700,000 is coming from this year budget alone, or you're going to spread it throughout the 5 years?
No, I assume that's going to be budgeted over 5 years.
Yes, the funds will be spread over 5 years, and actually.
780.
Well, it'll be split over the 5 years, exactly.
But the 780 is coming from this year budget?
No. It'll be
okay.
spread over 5 years in 60 equal installments. And the
Okay.
first installment won't be paid until the cars arrive, and the
Yeah.
vehicles will not arrive for approximately 4 months.
Okay, that's when it's a
there's-
lease. It's very good.
There are new vehicles, you have to order them, they get built.
I
That's how we're
understand
able to get these special rates.
Yeah, but I understand that if you're spending 780 within 5 years, why don't you spread it instead of
It is.
just
That's what we are doing.
It's spread.
But we
okay.
have to get your total approval because you're approving the 5-year contract.
Okay, we are approving the contract,
Right,
but we're
right.
not gonna write a check for 780,000 right now.
No.
That's when it's over 5 years we are spending that money for leasing cars for the police department. And we do understand when it comes to investigation, they change car every minute, every second, based on the investigation. And can we bring the chief to know, to find out how important it is, and for those cars? Because it's not 780 for just 1 year, or to buy cars at once. Chief.
Good evening, Chief Larry Juriga, City of North Miami Police Department. What specific question would you like me to answer, Mr. Manager?
Those cars is, and 700, and how many cars? First of all, how many cars total?
I believe the total comes out to 24. I believe annually it's approximately
Okay.
156,000. So each vehicle per
Okay.
year is about $6,500 per vehicle.
Okay. Okay, that's we need to have those details. So it's not like we're gonna write a check for 780,000 to buy those cars. It's a lease agreement, and we are spending about 150,000 a year. You're still not comfortable?
Mr. Mayor, it's not, and see, I don't want to be.
No, I'm just asking the question.
No, I'm not, because
Okay.
what I think we had said, there's some other questions that we have. We're gonna do it regardless what, because we might need to do it, but we have to take a pause and ask these questions to be sure, because it may be, we may just stay with the lease, because the lease may be better, because I don't know. They telling me now that the lease is this is better than the lease. So if we're spending 165 a year, so how much are we spending on the lease right now? All these type of
Those
different
cars need to
questions
be
that we, yeah.
replaced every year. So it's a rotation.
Yeah.
Those 20 are expired now. Next year you may have another 20 that expired, right?
Yes, I mean,
Chief.
yeah, I don't know exactly the frequency, Mr.
Because
Mayor.
those, my problem, those are technical things that for the police department, we don't want to say just stop that, and when those things are important for the police department to replace the fleet and vehicle of the police department.
Vehicles are a critical component of our day-to-day operations. To specifically answer your question, I believe the lease vehicles are right around $670 a month.
Okay.
I have to do the math. 670 times 12. I believe that's more than 6,500
a year.
Annually, yes, sir.
Per car.
But that's not all the vehicles. Not all the vehicles are leased. There's a specific
that's
number
what
that
I-
are
yes.
leased.
Okay, okay.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Would this be okay for us to table this? This is not life-threatening. We can wait till next council meeting to have just a little bit more detail. Chief, is that correct? Just want to make sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
There's a motion
Okay.
made and seconded that we continue this.
Thank you.
What's wrong with our motion, Madam
Well, you
Clerk?
can't
It's
have
gone-
a motion on the floor and then have a discussion. So, are you making a motion, Councilman?
Yeah,
We already made the motion.
Yeah, but you can't make a
second
motion.
for discussion. It was seconded for discussion. We had the discussion, and now we voted on.
I think the clerk is correct. Whenever there's a motion to continue an item, as
Oh.
soon as it's seconded,
Oh, we shouldn't discuss the
Supposed to
item.
stop
Also,
the
okay,
discussion.
okay, that's what I'm
Thank
talking
you.
about. Okay,
All right.
okay. Forget about the discussion. Now we move it to the next agenda.
No, we're not. We're taking
Next.
a vote on the motion.
Okay.
So I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Estimate Urban. Is that correct? Or
No,
Keys?
I made
Alex.
the motion.
Keys, it was Keys.
All
Who
right.
was that?
A
Okay.
motion to table the item, which is tab F, until next council meeting, made by Councilwoman Keys, seconded by Vice Mayor Keys, and seconded by Councilman Galvin. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? The item passes 5-0. Excuse me, the motion to table passes 5-0.
Okay. Go ahead. I think it's tab F. Right?
Tab G.
FG.
Proposed resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, adopting fiscal year 2019-2020 action plan under the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnership Grant, HOME, programs as required by 24 CFR 91.15A1, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. Tanya Wilson with Community Planning and Development. The request before you is for approval of the fiscal year 1920 action plan and for transmittal to the Department of Urban Development, that's HUD. As the Mayor and Council is aware, annually there's an action plan that's required for submittal to HUD. It's an outline of the expenditures of your HUD dollars, both between CDBG and home funds. For the 1920 fiscal year, we're anticipated to receive $757,246 in CDBG funds and an additional $269,234 in home funds. Before you in the packet is a breakdown of the proposed budget for the expenditure of those HUD funds. Staff is requesting approval of that budget so we can transmit to HUD and meet the federal guidelines that are required by each entitlement city. If the council has any questions at this time, staff is available to respond.
Public hearing is open on tab G. Public hearing is now closed.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion to approve tab G made by Councilman Galvin, a second by Councilwoman Estime Irvin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The item passes 5-0.
Tab H.
Tab H. Proposed resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, appointing members to the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee for the State Housing Initiatives Partnership Program, SHIP program, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Thank you again. For the record, Tanya Wilson with Community Planning and Development. The request before you is actually a continued item since the last meeting. Staff is back before you asking for approval of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee board. This is required based on the expenditure of the state funds. The state requires that if you're receiving SHIP dollars and you're developing a local housing action plan, that you also convene a committee, a board that will be working on affordable housing initiatives in partnership with city staff. So before you in the resolution is a list of names on the record for the board's for the council's consideration. So we're asking for acceptance of those names at this time.
Which tab is this?
Public hearing is open on tab H.
H. Okay. Thank you.
Tanjim Hossein, 900 Northeast 129th. At the last council meeting, you all had discussed, and the reason I recall that you tabled this was because you had said that you were not aware of the names ahead of time. You wanted to have some information about them, and I believe we supported you on that, right? Like we said things like, well, we don't know who they are either necessarily. Did you get information? Are there resumes? What are their experiences? And again, so before you approve, and I'm not saying anything as to whether or not you should or not, but I do want to ask you, did you receive that information? And were you able to have any input on the members on the committee? And how do we as residents know that these are the best people for the job? That's all. Thanks.
But you had the chance for the past 2 weeks to address a question to the department and about those people. That's why we tabled the item. As far as myself, yes.
If I may, it wasn't a personal concern of mine, but I may be mistaken. But
my question was answered.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes.
Brown, 1100 Northwest 120 Terrace. Is it possible for you all to just tell us who they are before you vote
Yes,
on?
can you repeat the names? for us,
Thank you.
please?
Okay, I'll read the names into the record. Michael Colas, that's under the mortgage loan officer category. An advocate for low-income persons is Jean Sorrell.
Mr. Mayor, through
realtor?
you to
Yes.
Ms. Wilson, read where they come from. Give us everything about each of these people. So, for instance, Mr. Coles works at TD Bank.
Yes, okay,
That's
so read the
helpful if we
description.
know where he's coming from and what his professional background is.
Okay, so the categories, I'll read the categories and then the name recommendation. So under the mortgage banker category, we have Michael Coles. He is a loan officer with TD Bank. Under the advocate for low-income persons, we have Jean Sorrell. He's a realtor. Under the for-profit affordable housing provider, we have Nick and Inan Bar.
Can you give us some information about the people, not just that he's a realtor? Where
I'm going to
is?
move to
Yeah.
continue this item until the next council agenda.
Yeah,
Did
I
they
had actually
brief-
provided the bios to the mayor and council prior to this
me.
item. So if,
They're not on the agenda right now. I'll move to continue this item.
That's what I'm looking for.
We have such a failure to communicate. Oh my God. My head is gonna pop off tonight. Move to continue until the next council agenda.
Councilman.
But last week, give me a second, please.
Sure.
Last week, you didn't have the bio of everybody.
I did.
How many
That
people
was-
did you
I
add
went
to the
through.
list from last year to?
We only had one name addition.
No,
And that
because
would have
there
been
was one.
Jean Sorrell.
That's not correct, Tanya, because I gave you a name.
Okay,
Is that Rachel
let's
Anderson?
continue on the
Okay,
next.
and
Yeah,
Rachel
let's move it to the next agenda so we can have a bio on everybody. Okay.
Not all of them have to require
They don't-
residency.
It would be great if we put out a press
No,
release.
the
and-
requirement,
We can attach the bios
requirement
to
that
the item.
attached to each person. Okay, what are odd requirement about that list? The name of the person. Do they need to live in the city or whatever it
we
is?
can
Okay.
provide that.
I just,
Yes.
I have a question. Is this was not, the bio and information was not included in the packet?
It's not in the packet,
Okay.
Okay.
but the
So-
names are on the record.
Thank you. We move it to the next agenda. Thank you very much.
All right, I
And
have a motion to continue the item until the next meeting made by Councilman Gavin. The second is
second. Okay.
by Mayor Bieneme. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Tab J.
J before I.
It's J before I today.
Yeah.
Proposed ordinance, second reading of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, amending Volume 1, Goals, Objectives, and Policies of the City of North Miami, 2016 Comprehensive Plan. More specifically, the future land use element thereof, in accordance with the requirements of Section 163.31843, Florida Statutes 2018, and Chapter 29, Article 3, Division 11, Section 3-1102A, and amending the future land use element at Policy 1.18.3 to provide for residential use within the Northwest 7th Avenue Planned Corridor Development Overlay, PCD, as is permitted within other planned corridor development overlays, and to require a conditional use permit to allocate density bonus units in the PCD, providing for an initial hearing and subsequent transmittal of the proposed amendment to the reviewing agencies and/or any interested local government or governmental agency for review under the expedited state review process, providing for an adoption hearing and subsequent transmittal of the proposed amendment as may be amended to respond to comments from the reviewing agencies to the State Land Planning Agency for a determination of completeness, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, correction of Scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
Thank you. For the record, Tanya Wilson again with Community Planning and Development. The item before you is actually a second reading for the text amendment for the comprehensive plan. I'm going to walk the mayor and council through the overview of the request. It's for pertaining to the location along Northwest 7th Avenue between Northwest 119th Street and Northwest 143rd Street The policy amendment would allow for residential density to be added into the PCD overlay district, a density of 125 dwelling units per acre. The request would then be required to have conditional use permits be submitted whenever density bonuses are requested for any properties along that corridor. A portion of that corridor would also include the Chinatown district that also has an adopted master plan and was adopted by Mayor and Council back in 2016. And once we gain approval of the comprehensive plan ordinance tonight, we would then transmit to the Department of Economic Opportunity for review, and if approved by the state, then the item would be recognized within the next 31 days if there was no appeal at that time. So staff is asking for approval of the second reading of the ordinance at this time so we can transmit to the state.
Public hearing is open on tab J.
Jessica Alston, 1140 Northwest 125 Street in Sunkist Grove. I am opposed to having increased density on 7th Avenue corridor. Before you had said it was going to be between 119 and 135, and now you say 119 to 141 Street. We don't want to have a ghetto or slum adjacent to our homes, our community in Sunkist Grove. And that's why I stand in opposition to this density increase and ask you not to approve it.
William Previtel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. I, on the other hand, think there might be a different effect. I think it's a positive step to redevelop this, and when you have the additional density and other factors expanded, it makes redevelopment much more possible. You can get a better product rather than being squeezed into certain criteria. There's a better chance of this actually happening. If we put forth parameters that are not even market compatible, nothing will happen. It's a moot gesture in a way. And I think we need to do, especially at this time, and I'll speak about that later, maybe about the economy, I think we need to do things that are incentivizing redevelopment in our city wherever possible. This is a chance of taking down some of the older housing stock, the ones that are most vulnerable to hurricanes, to flooding, to crime, to other issues, to a whole host of issues, infestation and such, and building something newer and better, and also lifting it off the ground, hopefully, I hope that's in there, that we lift all this off the ground so that it is a more habitable, more usable, more durable space for our citizens. And I commend Councilman Desilme, Dr. Desilme, for bringing this forward, and I hope it has your full support. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, City Staff. Howard Tonkin, 12600 Griffin Boulevard. Please vote to increase density in our city. If you look at a map of our city in a geographical relief, you'll see that we have many vulnerabilities of many thousands of people that are about to lose their houses in North Miami. They have no idea that that's going to happen, but it's going to happen really soon. And we have to increase density, particularly in the 7th Avenue corridor, because that is some of the highest land that has not been developed in South Florida. It's the last piece of high land until you get to West Palm. And it's our best shot at sustaining our city into the future. So we must develop our city in a responsible, in a world-class way. But if we don't go about making it possible for developers to take on some of these areas, we're not going to have a city that will be viable into the future decades. Thank you.
Judy Brown, 1100 Northwest 128 Terrace, Sunkist Grove. I'm not opposed to mix this particular plan because 7th Avenue need development. We need this. People need homes. The only thing that I would like for my council person and for the council to consider is that just to let the community know what's going on, because we need buildings, we need to have restaurants, we need to have medical facilities. People need homes and things. So we can't continue. We're not Mayberry. We cannot continue in that fashion. We have to look towards the future. You know, people need places to stay, and there's nothing wrong with having a building where you have, you know, a building at commercial at the bottom and then residence on top. I'm not opposed to that. We really need that. Thank you.
Alina Medina, 1270 Northeast, 124th Street. I just hope that you work with the community that lives immediately in that area and develop according to what they want. They live there, so that's extremely important. Thank you.
Tangent Jose, 900 Northeast 129th. If I might echo what Mrs. Medina just said, my impression is that you're going to move to approve this tonight. And if you do that, then let me really quickly remind you about the development at 9th and 130th. The community, the members, we who live there all came out many times and told you that we did not want it. You did not listen to us. So all I ask is that if and when you approve this and you have a specific conditional use permit come to you about whatever development comes there, that you please listen to the residents that do actually live there and integrate their input into whatever comes up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And public hearing is now closed. A quick question, Tanya. You said from 119 to 141. Why not 43? Oh, 143rd. Okay, okay. Making sure. And you're talking about east of 7, right?
Correct.
Not west of 7.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
Just for Miss Jessica, we're
on the
not talking
screen.
about the west part of 7th Avenue. We're talking about the east part. That's been I-95, only that side, right?
Correct. We have a map on the screen.
No, just
if they could
the
project
east part of Northwest 7. That's now along I-95, which is now almost 90%, 95% commercial. That's the part we are talking about.
Move
Yes.
approval.
On the-
Second.
Any questions?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did have one question.
Okay.
To Mr. Jour. On your policy 118.3, it does say it's bounded 119th to the south and northwest 135th Street to the north. So is that incorrect? Because we keep.
No, the
page 4?
PCD is all the way to 143rd Street. So that portion is only pertaining to Chinatown. So it's Chinatown and beyond, up to Northeast 143rd Street.
Northwest.
Correct,
Not- yeah.
northwest.
But we're changing the language that only refers to 119th to 135th?
Let's see where you are.
Or that just, so it's the
I'm
whole
sorry, I'm
corridor?
trying to follow where you are.
No, I was looking at
Yeah.
1D. Okay, I see, never mind, okay.
In the Chinatown area.
Yes, only
we
to
allow
the Chinatown.
residential.
So all we're really doing tonight is we're not changing the heights or anything, we're just allowing mixed use. And you can't,
Residential on
You can't-
Northwest 7.
so right now,
Correct.
there's no residential, so we're allowing residential, that's all we're
Correct.
doing.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, make a motion.
Call the question.
Any question?
No.
He's calling the question, he's calling the vote.
Okay.
They can't hear
Michael, the mic.
Your mic's not on.
Is on.
I am so sorry. We have a motion to approve the item at tab J made by Councilman Galvin, seconded by Councilman Desilme. All in favor?
Aye.
It's an ordinance. Do you have to do roll
right,
call?
roll
Oh,
call.
I'm so sorry. It is a roll call vote. I apologize. Mayor Bieneme,
Yes.
Councilman Galvin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Keys,
Yes,
Councilman Desilme,
Yes.
Councilwoman Estime Irvin.
Yes.
All right, the item passes for the second reading at 5-0.
Tab I.
Tab I, proposed ordinance, second reading of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, providing for text amendments to Chapter 29 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances by amending Article 3, Division 4, entitled Conditional Uses, specifically at Section 3-401, entitled Purpose and Applicability, and at Article 3, Division 13, entitled Development Agreements, specifically at Section 3-1301, entitled Purpose and Applicability. Further amending Article 4, Division 3, entitled Special Purpose and Overlay Districts, specifically at Section 4-306, entitled Plan Corridor Overlay District PCD, to establish residential density in the State Road 7, Northwest 7th Avenue PCD, and require a conditional use permit for development within the PCD, providing for repeal, conflict, severability, correction of Scribner's errors, codification, and for an effective date.
Thank you again. For the record, Tanya Wilson with Community Planning and Development Department. These are companion items, Mayor and Council. You just approved the ordinance for the comprehensive plan. This request is for approval of the land development regulations. Also for the same area along Northwest 7th Avenue. Just have to have both documents be in compliance, both comprehensive plan and the LDR. So requesting approval of that ordinance on second reading as well.
Public hearing is open on tab I.
Jessica Olson, 1140 Northwest 125 Street in Sunkist Grove. The desire here is to have units that can be 500 square feet, which is like a efficiency, or a one-room kind of like apartment, 10 stories high. That is going to be a great density, packing people together like sardines. And in that kind of environment, you call it a slum or ghetto. I am opposed to having that kind of development, a slum and a ghetto adjacent to Sunkist Grove. I think you can do better in planning. You don't plan to have a ghetto. That's not desirable. Thank you.
Ms. Tanya, a quick question for, we did not change the square footage of the units. We didn't lower that, no?
No, we haven't touched that. In
Okay,
terms
it's
of
still
the
at
minimum unit
750
size.
square feet, right?
Correct.
We didn't change that.
In the downtown
No.
area. That's in the downtown area. This is not the downtown.
Okay,
So it's still
okay, we did not
minimum
change. It's still at 750.
Correct.
Thank you. Public hearing still open on tab I.
William Previtel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. I still have faith in these gestures. I think there's a misconception that when we go ahead and we sort of upzone or we provide these opportunities for a district, that all of a sudden, like overnight, everybody's going to take advantage of it. This thing will be completely blown up, and all of a sudden it goes from 2 stories to 100 stories, and all of a sudden it's overwhelming. The truth is, and it's been shown throughout our city, is that even when we've provided some opportunities, it takes years for any project to get off the ground, let alone an entire neighborhood, an entire district. Quite frankly, we're going into an economic situation where now the country is in its longest economic expansion in the history of its, 240, 250 years that we've been here. And it's just statistically going to happen that the economy will turn. And we need to prepare ourselves as best as possible and to create opportunities for this downturn and to make our city a little bit more resilient. As we've probably mentioned before, we need to take out the older housing stock that if something happens, particularly a hurricane, that's going to take a great deal of attention. Those people will be homeless. The older housing stock in this city, if we get a category 4 or 5, those people will be homeless for an extended period of time. Roofs will come off, windows will blow out, flooding will take place, the flooding will go, and the mold will stay. We will have a disaster area. We need to replenish as much of our housing as soon as possible for the benefit of our people of our city, particularly in the areas that are the oldest and most vulnerable. So appreciate you supporting all of these gestures throughout the city. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marisol Medina. I live at 1270 Northeast 124th Street. There's a section in there that I saw that I wanted to give thanks for the modification in, and that's section 5-803, Sustainable Building Program. I don't know if this is going to be designated for just beginning, for this section, or this is something that's going to be taken across the city. It's section 10B. Other elements that they must include 4 out of 7 of these elements. 1 is a green wall. 2 is rainwater harvesting, rooftop gardens, minimal excavation of the foundations, gray water reuse, bioswales, and rain gardens. That is great. I'm really happy that it was cleaned up, that the bonus units for a bicycle being 5 is out, and things such of that nature. There's also number 11, which is sustainable landscaping design, that it's required that 100% of what they plant is native to Florida. 100% native preservation, if applicable. I'm sorry, yes, that's correct. Let's see here. And also they're part of a tree management plan. I'm really grateful for things like this being added to our city code. I hope that not for just this project, but this is something that we can be the first of to force everybody who plants something here not to buy it at Home Depot that doesn't belong here, and they pay more for it anyway. Why don't they visit Howard and get some good plants that are here? Let's see what else we got here. Oh, you guys, I have extra time. So we'll stick with just that. I hope that combining the multi-use in that section does as well. Having heavy industrial with resident in the same section favors us more than it did in mine. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Council. I'm Dr. Danielle Beauvais. I want to congratulate everybody, Mayor Council, and everyone here. I've been watching this meeting on television, like I usually do, and I agree with a lot of mention. Everybody knows it was a concern of mine as far as how the funds were being spent. I agree with Bob Petron, Kevin, and many people on those issues. I don't know if it's still okay for me to ask a question about a $600,000 that was given to a private medical institution for a medical marijuana room. I don't know if it's still okay to ask that question. So if it's okay, so that question is posed. The next thing is that I've always noticed watching those meetings is that our voices are not being heard. In other words, if we live in the county,
we are going to have public
that
forum.
Afterwards.
Yeah,
okay.
in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
We
But
are
for
just-
now, also,
yeah.
I want to talk about how we're not listened to in terms of we live in the district. Also, I want to say a big thank you.
You're going
to
to be able to speak again.
Yeah, but
in
I'm going
2
to talk
minutes.
about this item right
Okay,
here.
okay.
This item here is that we need to listen to the people who live in the district. For example, like this gentleman just mentioned, yes, if we live in the district, we know what's going on in the district, and we are better able to say, okay, fine, we will concur with having this type of development, or this is what it's bringing. So it is important that this council right now really do listen to us who live in that particular district. Thank you.
Republican, still open on tab I.
Can move
No one.
approval.
Second.
Madam Clerk. Your mic.
Microphone. Just leave it on your microphone.
Your mic.
Yeah.
I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin, seconded by Vice Mayor Keys. Councilwoman Estimate Irvin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Bieneme?
Yes.
Councilman Galvin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Keys?
Yes.
Councilman Desilme?
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
You sure?
I think so.
Discussion on it's tab K. Is discussion about the 2020 census progress. Councilman Desilme.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to bring this item up as we know we are approaching the 2020 census, which is really, really important to our city in the long terms. The dollars that we get from CDBG, and I know this is the right time, or this is not even the board, I need to bring this up to because we all understand the importance of it. I wanted to ask the council if I could be the council liaison between the census and as well as the city and all these other community groups to bring updates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's mainly that.
Before that, can
Yes,
we
sir.
ask for an update on where we are right now as far as the census? What are the preparation that we are doing?
Through the city manager, right now we've already started, I believe we started almost 2 months ago preparing for the census. We've hosted a community meeting to set up our complete count committees. We have set up our complete count committees. We did have residents that did attend. Our goal this year, last census, we did 69% participation. So our goal this year will be, get closer to 100% participation. Right now, we're doing all of the legwork. We're having a kickoff. Our census kickoff will be at the July 4th event. Because we're going to have a large.
That's another. I wanted to, because I
Let him
think.
finish with the updates.
Okay.
Everything, and then after
And
that.
then I'll
we
have-
will-
okay.
Yeah.
With us having pretty much our largest crowd that we ever have at that event, we're going to have our kickoff there, so you'll see census everywhere at the July 4th event. Right now, we're just strategizing, put together how we're going to be addressing census here in City Hall with employees, and then our message that we will have up for census, just reminding people. We will get in depth, as it gets closer to January, when everybody starts the real campaign. The census is on April 1st. And then the next coming 3-4 months afterwards is when people don't respond, then we will begin targeting the residents that didn't respond. And that's, actually a door-by-door campaign that we will be working with the census also. So that's where we are right now. That's it.
Do you have resources inside?
Yes, we do have two part-time individuals right now that are working on the census. That's just inside right now, and they're being supervised by our management analyst. So they are working and preparing stuff like for the 4th of July. They are preparing stuff right now for us to move forward.
Esmond was in charge of the census.
Ultimately,
administration.
Administration, it falls on me. The last census was done by the deputy city manager. So I am heading it up, and Francisco Madera, our management analyst, is overseeing the 2 employees and reporting back to me with the day-to-day on how we're moving right now.
What they are doing those day-to-days?
Just receiving the information. They do the webinars that the census do offer. They gather all of the information. They're putting together like I said, the events. They're working on a complete count committee. They're reaching out to the residents to get them to sign up. Anybody who wants to volunteer to participate in the census. We did have a community meeting. I believe it was on May 14th, I believe was the date.
But do you have any liaison with the Census Bureau?
Well, yes, we do. Katia St. Fleur, she is working for the census.
I say we. I'm not talking about outside people. Yeah.
Yes, our staff is working with the young lady, with the lady from the census. Katia St. Fleur works for the census.
Yeah,
So
but
we're
not
in
just
constant
someone
contact.
working for the census. I'm talking about the real administration in connection with them.
That's their person they assigned us. So if it's anybody else, no, we're not yet engaged anybody yet. Just the person that's assigned to our district. That's the one.
No,
That's what I
we're
think.
talking to.
And okay,
Just to clarify, who is reporting or who is collaborating with Katia Saint-Fleur from inside?
Myself.
Okay, so I
Yes.
think that's what the
okay, who is that person?
She works for the census. She's the regional.
She's a secretary. She's the aide.
No,
she
she's a
answer
regional.
The fund for.
The regional specialist for the area for our census.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the exact title.
But as
but
a
she's-
city, don't we have a? Go ahead. That's.
Oh, well, that's what I just wanted to let the council know that I'll be a little bit involved on as far as, I did it 10 years
You're
ago
not
with
gonna
Dr.
get
Claude.
paid.
No, I'm
Oh,
not
no,
talking about
it's-
not getting paid.
You gotta tell them.
No,
man.
no. Yeah, 10 years ago with Dr. Claude and all the outreach. My concern when it was brought to my attention regarding the 4th of July, I didn't think that was a good outreach thing because the 4th of July is so sacred. That's dealing with the independence. We could have marketing stuff there, but I don't think that should be our kickoff because you want people to pay attention on the message. They switch out the counting method of the you know, there's so many different things going on. Just like the other cities nearby, the way they've done their press release, they've done you know, whatever that they can to make it aware. Because on the 4th of July, people go there for a firework, and although we have different vendors there, so that was my and I share that with you when we met. So I don't know if that's a good strategy for us to say we are kicking off the 4th of July. I don't know what we're kicking off, but I guess our public outreach component at the 4th of July event. That's just, I think it just needs to be a dedicated standalone because a lot of the people who attend the 4th of July are not really residents. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's just on a side note. So that's basically, that was the intent of the item, Mr. Mayor. Just that I'll be more
the
involved
item
with
is
it. Thank
to you wanna
be a little bit more involved with the
involved
yeah.
as the honorary chair on the census committee.
Is there a chair? I didn't. Okay. So
Something like that. Whatever it is. Huh?
Okay, whatever.
Approval
we
that
got.
Councilman DeSulme.
They should oversee what the administration is doing as far as the 2020 census and brand
Not the
strategy.
administration, the whole
and
community. You know what I'm saying,
so
dude.
your-
What?
Your original request basically was to ask council to be a liaison between city and community groups.
In community, exactly.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes.
So moved.
And I second that.
All right. I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin for Councilman DeSulme to be a liaison between city and community groups for the 2020 census process, seconded by Mayor Bien-Aimé. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes.
Tab
Tab
L.
L, discussion regarding the BOA Board of Adjustment ordinance change.
This will be very quick. Via our various individual briefings with you, we've gotten, myself and the city attorney have gotten feedback that the council desires to consider having the BOA be an advisory board similar to, I guess, planning commission. So we wanted to just officially ask for that direction so we can start on working on the ordinance.
What's the BOA?
Carol, you
Board of Adjustment, sorry, sir.
Carol, yeah. What's your thought on it? I
My
think you
thought-
brought it last time. And
Well, one of the things is we changed our LDRs back in 2017 to at least have our board members have certain requirements that would lead them or give them the ability to make informed decisions. And it had to do with real estate or law or architecture. There's a whole list of those requirements. Right now, we have everybody's appointments, except for mine, have expired. But after we did
yours
the
is expired too. You say every election circle.
right, but I didn't come.
Every 2 years. That's when you can
Really?
reappoint the same person.
Okay, because it's
But-
on the. I'm just looking. It says it expires 21, but I can reappoint. My appointee does have the required expertise.
okay.
There's nobody really on the board. Nothing personal, but I don't think there's anybody on the board that really has the requirements. So if we're not going to do that, this board, and I've requested, this board is making some really serious decisions for our city. It's really changing the shape of the way our city is going. People are getting variances or special exceptions that really might not reflect what the council wants. The public hearing process is really, people don't really look at the agendas, people don't attend the Board of Adjustment. So there's a lot of important items going past that people don't even know that are happening, and they're kind of, if someone is not happy with the Board of Adjustment decision, then that person goes to court. But if someone else is not happy, I mean, a private citizen or even the council can't go to court. We are stuck with the Board of Adjustment. So I really, I mean, it puts a lot of more burden on us, and that's why it was taken off back in 2012, I believe. It does give us a lot more responsibility, but that's why we're up here, is to take the heat and the responsibility. So I'm 100% for it. Thank you for bringing it up, Mr. Manager.
Councilman Scott Galvin.
I'll support it on a 6-month trial basis. Staff has to get a heck of a lot better at explaining what they're talking about and doing when they come here to, I mean, look at the chaos that we had tonight. I think every department head, everybody who might come to this microphone should be assigned going to a storytelling class somewhere and learning how to just speak. I've done the Board of Adjustment coming to us. You're right, it will add 90 minutes to each agenda. I'm cool with that. But not if staff is going to come up here and ham-handed describe what the heck they're talking about. So I'd be willing to try it on a 6-month basis, hoping that staff could better explain what they're up to.
No, the question is, instead of they want to change the status of the Board of Adjustment to be an advisory board.
Correct. No, I totally
Okay.
understand what's being said,
Okay.
and I've been up here before when we had
Okay.
that role.
Okay.
I'm saying right now, recognize that when the Board of Adjustment becomes strictly advisory and not the decision
Oh,
makers,
okay, okay.
it will add an
I
easy
see,
90 minutes to each
I see,
one of our
I
agendas.
see what you're saying.
But I'm only down for that if staff can do a better job of simply stating what the item is about, because I don't want to have this chaos that we've had tonight for an extra 90 minutes at each council meeting.
Councilwoman,
No, I'm good.
what do you think about?
I'm okay with the trial basis. I'm
What
fine
about
with
you?
the motion.
Whichever.
Mr. Mayor, I have one request.
Yes.
If we are gonna do it on a pilot basis, one of the things I would like to suggest and
We're
recommend.
not gonna do.
Do the
He
ordinance.
suggests that we're gonna do it, but he's gonna try it for 6 months. If it doesn't work, we're gonna
Go back.
we always can change the ordinance.
The,
That's what it is.
the one thing I would ask you to also consider, and we can put it in the ordinance, that as part of this process, we actually, and I know this is a real ask, could we have a meeting that is a planning meeting, so those items come together?
A planning meeting.
So it wouldn't.
Prior to council?
No, it'll be a meeting solely to deal with planning
Special
commission
meeting.
items and Board of Adjustment
An
items.
additional council meeting?
An additional council.
I'm not
meeting.
down for that.
Okay, I just wanted to ask.
Okay, no. No.
That's in
No.
addition to the
Your regular council meeting.
No. I'm saying, don't we already have the CRA? Are we're not having?
You still have a CRA.
I mean, I would understand if you say maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes prior, but in a whole meeting, no.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
I'm giving you a suggestion. I've seen it other cities.
No, then they-
for planning
Okay.
items. That's
Okay.
all.
Yes.
I'll
That's
make a
mean you
motion.
have direction. No, we don't need. You have direction. He's gonna prepare it and bring it back for approval. That we're gonna change the ordinance and make the Board of Adjustment an advisory board. That's what it is. Okay, and I don't think.
So just for the record, so all Board of Adjustment meetings will be on hold until we figure out.
No.
We'll continue going forward the way the
Until we
ordinance
pass another
current-
ordinance.
Okay.
currently
Yeah,
reads,
yeah. I
and
just
then
wanted
when
to
you
make sure.
update your ordinance, then we'll
Yeah.
transition.
Then we'll, okay.
Thank you very much. And now, Citizen Forum.
Dr. Danielle, 1140 Northeast 132nd Street, North Miami. I don't know if the gentleman, the accountant, is still here to answer the question of the $600,000. Was there a $600,000 given to a private medical institution for medical marijuana?
At the
And
beginning
if so,
of
do we have an ordinance or in the charter somewhere where we actually do that? Is it in the budget to actually fund different private medical institutions funding for medical marijuana?
In 2 weeks, we're gonna have the CRA meeting. You can ask that question at the CRA because the money was given from the CRA budget. It was a CRA item.
Then the council vote on it?
The CRA board.
So the CRA did it and council supported it?
It was the CRA.
Only?
It was the CRA. That's been every second Tuesday of the month at 5:30. We have the
Okay.
CRA board meeting. That's been, they should be able to answer your question, and the CRA is going to be there.
Okay.
Director.
All righty, thank you so very much. As far as Councilman Desulme, when you mentioned that you think it should be separate, I want to talk about that because I have worked on the census on actually the past 20 years, and I think it's a good idea to still include it into the July 4th, but still you're right to also have it specifically because it is something that I've found, that we found as people who work in the census, that a lot of people do not want to participate, especially now that they want to add this new sentence asking people if you are a citizen. If that question goes in there, so a lot of people probably will not even want to fill it out. So I really commend you guys for actually doing that because it's really very important. And congratulations to Scott Galvin for actually taking the time to bring up that town hall meeting about what's going on with our tax dollars. Thank you.
Laura Hill, 13075 Griffin Boulevard. I just wanted to follow up with a consideration about the changing of the Board of Adjustment to a advisory as opposed to quasi-judicial. My understanding is now the procedure, if a case is declined by the Board of Adjustment, the next step is a zoning appeals board before yourselves, if they would like to appeal a negative decision for Board of Adjustment. So if you're taking over the decisive action as opposed to Board of Adjustment doing it, they'd basically be appealing your own decision. Is that correct? So you'll have to take into consideration the zoning appeals process that was just introduced.
They would have to appeal through the court system.
Well, that was the old procedure if Board of
They'll have to.
Adjustment
We don't-
declined it. So now we would just get rid of the zoning appeals board?
No government body can act as a overseer of their own decisions.
Right. So now if the Board of Adjustment becomes an advisory board, you become the decisive body, and we'd be getting rid of the zoning appeals process.
The applicant would then.
Right.
That process would end for BOA decisions.
Right, right. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify
There
that.
still would be relief for the applicant.
In the 11th Circuit.
Right, it just
Right.
wouldn't be.
Okay, so the new process that we just added onto our comprehensive plan was the zoning appeal process. We would scrap that altogether and just go for more of a planning commission style board. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Richard N. East, 13030 Northeast 10th Avenue. I first want to also echo thanks to Scott for having the town hall meeting last week, and the city manager and the finance director being there, taking their time to answer questions. I think we got a little bit overreactionary tonight. I think we actually are in good shape. The only positive thing, or the only thing that I think we all agree, is that we've done some unnecessary spending. And I'm going to remind all of you going forward, I mean, Scott's already said it, and Alex wants to question everything that you guys approve. So I'm going to strongly remind you the next time somebody comes to us for Beer Fest or Mardi Gras or totally unnecessary expenditures that are a waste of time, I'm going to remind you of this moment, that the fact that you all agree that we have some unnecessary spending. And I'm going to hold your feet to the fire to make sure that you don't do it. And just going to remind you of the fact that you all agree at this point that we do have unnecessary spending. My other thing is, last meeting I complained about the parking situation on Northeast 131st Street east of 14th Avenue. Chief Jariga that night told me he was going to check it the next day. He did a follow-up with me at my house today. It's scary when you see the chief knocking at your door, but
It's pretty scary.
I wasn't too afraid because I know him. And the proof in the pudding is the lady that came here that was starting to complain during the budget process that she got a ticket. Okay, there was 9 tickets issued today. They did the proper steps in warning them that instead of perpendicular parking, they started parallel parking, except they did it in tandem. So they went back and told them they can't do that and wrote some tickets. And I just want to thank him for the follow-up. We always talk about complaints, but we also need to follow up when the job gets done. Thank you.
Judy Brown, 1100 Northwest 120 Terrace. Sunkist Grove. My thing is I want to thank this manager and whoever, council, for the customer service center across the street. The only thing is that communication. I did not know the service center was across the street. I think it's a brilliant idea. I was coming from LA Fitness and I said, oh my goodness, this is really nice. So at my homeowners meeting, I did announce it to the residents that was there. But once again, I think we are failing to communicate when we are doing really good things in the city. And that's a good thing. And I hope that you would do a better job of just letting us know that it's there. Because I could have gotten an email. Everybody has my email address, and then I could have put it on our Facebook page, and I did later on. But communication, and thank you, Mr. Gavin. I really enjoyed the meeting. Kudos, really good. But communication, that's what we need to do more of. Thank you.
What is she talking about?
Good evening, Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. Even as these meetings get a little tense and heated, you all are appreciated up there. The staff is appreciated. Everybody's trying to do the right thing, and sometimes it may not sound like it, but you all are appreciated. You don't have to be up there. You don't volunteer your time, but you do make an effort, and the staff does too. The staff isn't. So just want to convey that in the heat of the moments when people are maybe not agreeing with you all in the most positive way. A couple things I want to touch upon real quickly is density, and it's something that came up during the approval on 7th Avenue. The density issue is going to come up on 151st Street. Some of the new projects that are taking place over there, they're going to be asking for less than 750 square feet. Downtown, it's less than 750, it's 500. What is wrong to look at whether or not some of the units on 7th Avenue should be the new style of apartments that are 500 square feet? Instead of cherry picking different parts of the city, maybe the community planning department should have a comprehensive look at density, the size of the units citywide, instead of saying, well, downtown you can have 500 square feet, but on 7th Avenue you can't, or on 151st Street, the new development that's coming up there, they're going to be asking for even less than 500 square feet. So let's not have a hodgepodge. Let's plan in advance before we get all these individual projects going on. Another thing, I would look at the budget that if my garbage costs me money, I want to pay what it costs. I want to pay my water bill for what it costs me. I don't think the general fund should be subsidizing enterprise funds. We got ourselves in trouble many, many years ago when the council refused to raise the rates every year, and they depleted a $10 million surplus, and we got in trouble that way. And the other thing is, Board of Adjustments, Mr. Manager, and council members, be careful what you wish for. We took it off because wishful thinking that it's 90 minutes. It is more like 2 or 3 hours, and also the lobbyists and the people who want that project are going to be hounding you constantly to get their message across. And I'm going to wrap up on the Board of Adjustments that you want to change it to advisory because you don't like the members that you all appoint. If your appointee isn't of the caliber or of the requirements, that's on the council, not on the mechanism itself. Just be very, very careful bringing it back to being an advisory as opposed to a quasi judicial. We did it for a long time, and there was a reason why it was removed. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Annie Montgomery dropped this off and asked me to present it to you all. A Waste Pro truck. This is, she wanted me to drop these pictures off. I'll give it to the city attorney. Apparently, that's even after the road has been washed with the bad water. I mean, with all the rain, the grease and that from those trucks is getting unacceptable in the neighborhoods. And she's left several pictures and asked me to pass them around to you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me extra time.
Jessica Alston, 1140 Northwest 125 Street, Sunkist Grove. The Citizen Forum, I stand to ask the question, is the affordable housing members, are they required to be city residents?
Your question will be answered.
And I will further state that a person who would sit on the Affordable Housing Authority Advisory Committee in our city should be a city resident of our city.
Okay.
Always the same people are asked to do the same things over and over again. We have a whole city of people that can qualify to sit on these boards. And I hope that our citizens of our city, our residents, will participate in the governance of our city, especially with this Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tangent Mosey, 900 Northeast, 129th. About boards, committees, commissions, I apologize, I don't actually know the difference between all these things, but, and I understand that you're not compelled to answer questions, but I would greatly appreciate it if you do. My question to you is there a mechanism, other than these city meetings and the town hall that you had, Mr. Galvin, is there a way or a mechanism by which we can have a citizens oversight board, commission, committee, whatever the word is, such that we might have additional input as to the formulation and implementation of the budget from year to year? That's my question.
Can you answer?
I'm happy to answer that question.
Go ahead.
Yes, it's called the ballot box. And during budget hearings, it takes the residents getting the budget book, which is online, reading it, and coming in with suggestions. We have homeowners associations, or at least 12 in the city. Those groups meet regularly through the year to suggest changes. But there is not a mechanism by which there's a citizens committee that then outranks our decisions. Your citizens committee, you can put together homeowner groups, like Facebook chatting, I mean.
Not to outrank, but you know how, for example, the planning commission, they hear the citizens as to any particular item. If there's a big item coming up, for example, how the city manager, I believe, has to come before us for any item over 35,000, more or less. If that were to happen, is it possible that we could have some kind of volunteer board that represents the whole city, not just one particular homeowners association, that would make a recommendation to the council, i.e. like we have when the planning commission comes before you with their recommendation for, hey, this makes sense or this doesn't, just to maybe take some load off of you or speed things up later. Just an idea. But I do appreciate that we do have those mechanisms. Thanks for pointing that out. Thank you very much.
William Prevotel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. Just a quick comment on, have a number of things, but regarding unit sizes. I really wish that our city would go towards an average of unit sizes. We all fear maybe, oh, there's 1,000 units and they're all 500 square feet. Well, what if it was an average of a certain thing, maybe 700 feet or so? Maybe in that particular building you would have a family living in a 1,500 square foot space, and you'd still have a 500 square foot space for a relative, grandmother, somebody just coming back from college. It's better for marketing flexibility, it's better for the mix, and it's better usage for the people and better for the owners of the property. I'd also like to touch on briefly on the economy as I'm giving these regular warnings. Today I saw on Bloomberg one of the charts. It happened to be the S&P 500, and it said pop and drop, which caught my attention. And at the very end of this swervy line, they have a little arrow going up in these next couple months. And what scared me, just like a cartoon, this giant arrow coming down, like 3 months, 4 months from now, that was a potential forecast. The graphic looked like a cartoon, but we have things that are going on that are really of concern, that should concern our city. Corporate debt is at all-time high levels. People, car payments are at all-time high levels, delinquencies. I think our city needs to be prepared for this now, not then when it happens, because when that shoe drops, we're not actually going to be aware of it. On a happier note, last meeting I was not here because my mother was in the hospital. I was in the hospital with her, but she's coming out on Friday. On a happier note, my observation is that we may have possibly the greatest gender balance up here on the dais that we've ever had, probably in the city of North Miami. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a great thing to see. Really appreciate that. And just what would actually make it better is if we had the logic of District 1, 2, Mayor, 3, and 4 for us and for anybody else visiting. And that would also be boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. And I think that would make sense. Right? That would make sense. So if you can go to that 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it's just logical. I'm not too sure why we're mixed up. The vice mayor isn't necessarily next to the mayor, but if we could go the logical sequence for people viewing, it would behoove all of us. Thank you very much.
The old man historian in me right now has to jump up and say, Mayor Christine Moreno, Councilwoman Shelley Gassner, and Councilwoman Jeanette Carr all served. So depending on how you want to look at it, there was a better, at the same time, there was a better gender balance in the early 90s.
And I like my corner. I need my corner because I got more stuff.
Citizen forum is now closed. I see no one comes. Right. Reports.
Can I give a quick report? Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Quick report. No other report except our budget workshop is coming up July 10th. This is the time that you all need to come, scream, yell, do whatever. We could stay here all night, but that's the time you need to tell your council people what you will accept, what you want your money spent on, what you don't want your money spent on. Do you want us lowering your taxes? Do you want us subsidizing your water bills? Or do you want to, just whatever. And coming on the last night of the budget hearing, where we've already spent hours and we've done our budget workshop, we've done the first one, we've pretty much got it all ready with a few tweaks, the final night, that's not the best time. If you want to have a say about the budget, then you all need to be here July 10th because we're having a workshop. And for the first time in years, maybe about a year or two ago, we used to put this little tiny budget summary, and with our staff, we have the full budget. And we used to have a big budget. We now do a line-by-line budget, so it will be online, and there's no reason anybody can't just look at every single thing that money is being spent on. And thank you.
Scott.
On the topic of budget, Mr. Simpson, who has left the room, asked that certain questions be answered. During the course of this meeting, we've set up a meeting tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. I will invite anybody and everybody with budget questions to come to it. It'll be at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning here at City Hall in the manager's office. I will be live streaming it. I go to great lengths to answer everybody's questions. After tomorrow, and I'm sorry I'm a little bent out of shape tonight, but I'm not sorry. I go to such length to try to answer everybody's questions and be accessible that when we answer the same questions over and over and the fingers get wagged back at us, I get a little bent out of shape. So tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. in the manager's office, it will be live streamed on Facebook. Any and all questions that Mr. Simpson has and any other resident has on the budget, please come. That will be the last meeting I'm going to host for a while on the topic because at this point I'm flogging a horse. On a positive note, there was a presidential candidate in North Miami today. I'm not going to say who because I'm not trying to turn it into I'm not trying to do that, but the campaign complimented our Parks Department. The event was held at North Miami Middle School Gymnasium, which is the old North Miami High Gymnasium. Almost got canceled. Almost got canceled. Well, it managed to
It
happen,
wasn't.
but they
Who was
called
it?
out Ernie Ramos by name, and Tony, who
Oh, I
does
didn't know.
facilities there. I just wanted to pass along that the campaign said very good things about our park staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to just restate that there's going to be a hurricane preparedness session this Thursday, the 27th, from 6 to 8 at Griffin Center. So I'm inviting everyone to come to learn what we should do before, during, and after a storm. So I'd like to do that. Also, I'd like to just ask, are we going to do any board appointments? Maybe the next council meeting we'll do
Doing
that?
a report.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all that I have to report tonight. Thank you.
Alex.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, I have one quick, I guess this is a comment. I know we have every staff has a cell phone. I'm going to be looking very careful at that line item, although it's a minor thing. But anyone who's a public servant, or they call themselves a public servant, who work in this building like we, including your office, should know that they are to respond to the residents. That's why we're here. I am very upset about one incident that happened today. We spoke privately, I think, to the deputy manager about it. If somebody says something to a resident, I expect it to happen. That's from your office and every single office. If not, they don't need to be here, because we are here because of them. And we talked about being resident centered. I am going to be very, very heavy, because one thing that I don't do, and I will mention it, I don't talk to personnel things with the manager. That's his discretion. That's that. And I don't talk about anything. I give him his respect and whatever that he does. At the same time, when he does make a decision of bringing you on board here to serve us, I expect you to serve everybody equally in this city, and I expect you to do your job. If you have a cell phone, you don't answer it, you don't want it public, then you don't need to have it. Or if you have a resident, and we talked about almost every department except with those dealing with money that should not be going and making home visits, talking to these residents, get to know who they are. It's a shame that we only have one police chief that most people in the city actually will say something good about when it comes to outreach. So I would like to see more departments, especially the ones dealing with public, deals
We
with
see the
that.
chief more than his
Yeah. Oh
assistants.
God, we see the chief. The chief is. We can't clone him, but and I'm not advocating for that. However, other departments that does that needs to show that in the residents that they serve the public that they see. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You want me to go before you?
Yeah, no, go ahead, so you can come up with those board appointments.
No problem. All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you again for being part of this meeting tonight. It's extremely important, as I mentioned last meeting, that everybody participate and participate fully. So I'm very grateful that you all attended. One of the ways that you can have a voice in local government is always through your boards and committees. It just so happens that many of these appointments and board positions are actually vacant. And so I encourage everybody who, especially residents, to go ahead and apply to serve on a board. If you would like, we should have some board applications in the back with the deputy city manager. Additionally, these applications can be found online. If you go to the government tab at North Miami, Florida, northmiamifl.gov, click on the government tab, and then a menu will come up on the left-hand side. It'll say boards and committees. You just click on that, and I believe about on the right-hand side, maybe the third link down, is an online application that you can print out and submit. We have a list online that may not be actually updated, but we're actively working on that. But just for the record, I will name some.
And before you continue, that means the board's gonna go back to the city clerk department.
The
Is that
application.
correct, Mr. Manager? Yeah, okay, okay.
We're working on a transition. We're working on a transition plan for many of the outsourced functions.
Okay.
That being said,
Some
vi-
important, and I want to make some appointments.
Okay, I'm just gonna finish
Oh, okay.
what I have
Oh, I
to
thought
say,
you were
and
gonna-
then
oh,
I
okay.
will get to
Okay,
that.
I thought you had
So, Vice Mayor Keys is correct in that, for the most part, all of your appointments are current, most of them. However, because of the recent election, a lot of seats are vacant. I'm going to quickly run through the list, but the list is available online. However, the members that are part of it are inaccurate, and if you need this list, I can provide you with a list. You have the Advisory Committee on the Disabled, Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, Board of Adjustment, the Charter Board, Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Committee, Community Relations Board, Disaster Preparedness Committee, Downtown Action Plan Advisory Committee, Floodplain Management, Health Facilities Authority, Library Board, the Museum of Contemporary Art Board of Trustees, Nuisance Abatement Board, Park and Recreation Commission, Personnel Board, Planning Commission, Quality Education Board, Senior Citizens Advisory Board, University Relations Board, and Youth Opportunity Board. We're going to take a closer look at these just to make sure that we're completely up to date on what we have. But certainly we are asking that folks do apply, residents especially, apply to be on these boards, to serve on these boards, so that the council can make appointments, and hopefully that can take place at the next council meeting.
You all set? Do you have any planning meeting coming up and Board of Adjustment where we need to make appointments tonight so we have quorum for the next meeting?
Yes, we do have a
Before
July
next
meeting. Yes,
when?
We do have it's the first Tuesday in July, I'm sorry.
Which board?
Planning Commission.
Okay. And
So that's July
do you have
2nd.
any vacant position on that
Planning
board?
Commission.
On the
Madam-
Planning Commission?
Yes,
Yeah,
check
Yes.
for me.
Board of Adjustment as well.
Yes, the Board of Adjustments.
Check the
We just
plan.
have one person, and that is the member who was appointed by Vice Mayor Keys.
Okay,
And then,
can I appoint Mike McDermott on the Planning Commission board?
give me 1 second to
think he's
check, because I
already
believe you
there.
did appoint
He's
somebody.
already there. He's an existing member of the Planning Commission.
No, I think his term expired.
Yes, for
So it's a
expired
reappointment.
terms, I forgot to mention this, however, if your term has just simply expired, please do speak with the council person, if they're still on the dais, who appointed you, because then we can just do a reappointment.
Yes,
For anybody who would be a new member, it would be an application.
Okay, that's what we.
So for the Planning Commission,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you'd like to reappoint him?
Mike McDermott.
Okay.
You have the list?
And the Board of Adjustment.
No, how many do you have on
has
the
a
planning?
quorum
On the
board?
Planning Commission,
Mhm.
I have the only 2 individuals who are current. I had Melton Goodwin and then Mr. Bob Pashan, and now we've just reappointed Mike McDermott.
You have 3. Only 3 people?
Correct. That's all I have right now.
Okay.
And
You
then
wanna-
you asked about the Board of Adjustments.
No, let's finish with the planning board first. Are we gonna do any appointment to the planning tonight? Nobody?
I would prefer that we be given advance warning and a list of who our appointees are so that we can, look and see, because we have 30 different boards. We could be here all night.
No, what we are
No,
doing,
right,
we are
I-
doing for the planning commission who's going to meet
July 2nd.
July 2nd.
And Board of
That's the
Adjustment
only
too,
board we
Mr.
are
Mayor.
talking now.
Okay. Who
Who
are
was-
my appointees to the Planning Commission
To the
currently?
Planning Commission, your appointee was Jason James.
Okay.
To the Board of Adjustments,
Are we doing
No.
Planning and Board of Adjustment, or are we doing just?
Do we have a
Yes,
meeting
prefer,
for?
because Board of Adjustment has a quorum problem.
Let's do
currently,
planning.
'cause they
so
lost
we're, okay,
one.
Jason James.
Has Mr. James been faithfully attending?
Very faithful, very regular.
Okay, I'll renominate Mr. James.
Okay. Councilman DeSome, you had Charles Ernst. Charles Ernst. He
Ernst
was
Charles.
vice chair. Ernst Charles?
Ernst. Ernest, yeah.
Does he come, Mr. Charles come?
Yes, very regular, very
Yeah, I
faithful.
thought so, yeah,
He's
he's
one of
one
the
of the
local.
So you're reappointing him, okay. Will that be sufficient to get you the quorum you need?
No, what about Councilwoman?
Well, I'm not sure if she wanted to.
Yes,
get
I
an
do.
application.
Yeah.
No, I already know.
You already have the person?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I just have a question, though, before I appoint, because two people approach me. Everyone just gets one, and is there an alternate? Do we all decide on the alternate?
You need planning. The planning commission, we are working on it now.
Okay, I'd like to appoint Howard Tompkin, please.
Howard Tompkin on the planning board.
So your total head count?
No. And do you want to make any up?
I have 6.
Oh, you already, okay, that's when you complete, right?
Well, no, I think we still have,
You have a board
room
of
for one
7,
more.
and then you need 2
One more
alternates.
from who? Alternate, right?
6, yes.
Yeah, you have, if you have enough quorum, we can come up with it at the
Okay.
next
You
meeting.
need 7
Can
and
we-
then 2 alternates.
Yeah, that's.
So you need.
You have 6, right? We have quorum, okay?
We have quorum, we have 6.
Okay, for the rest, we'll do that at the next council
And then Board
meeting.
of
Board of
Adjustment?
Adjustments.
Yeah, at the next
They're
council
struggling
meeting.
with
No,
a
we need
quorum
to do Board
problem.
of Adjustments now.
Yeah, they don't
For
have
when?
a quorum currently.
When they're gonna be
For the
meeting?
3rd Wednesday in July, so that's the 18th.
18,
that
that's
will
when
be
we'll do that
after
on
the
the
9th.
9th.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So you take the names.
yeah.
It's kind of close though.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Um,
Oh,
wait.
sorry.
So as part of my report, I am requesting an executive session of mayor and council to discuss the matter of Monosteam versus the city of North Miami.
Okay. Thank you very much.
When?
When would that be?
No, she will get
I
back
will
to us.
our
with the-
staff
when it
will
comes to the
coordinate with
date.
your staff to find a date that will be suitable for outside council as well as each member of the mayor and council.
We're going on summer recess. It would be really cool if summer recess did have a little bit of summer recess.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
already scheduled to give deposition in that case on July the 18th. So I don't know what the intent is. Should we do it before we do deposition? Should it happen after we do deposition?
Our preference is to have it before the start of your recess and before the start of the depositions.
Okay, and no reports. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Good
All
night,
in
everyone.
favor?
Aye.
Huh?
All opposed?
What? Oh.
I really think it would be